Night shifts are quieter than people think. Everyone imagines 911 ringing off the hook at 2 a.m. with car wrecks and home invasions, but most of the time, it's stillness. The phones just sit there under the dim glow of the console screens, and you can hear the low hum of the air system through the whole floor. That night, I was halfway through a styrofoam cup of coffee that had gone cold before I even remembered to drink it. The place smelled faintly like burnt dust from the heaters, and the chair creaked every time I shifted. It had been almost 40 minutes since the last call. Then the line lit up. The sound wasn't loud, more like a polite beep than an alarm, but it always hits me the same way, like someone tapping my shoulder in an empty room. I cleared my throat and answered. 911, what's your emergency? At first, there was nothing, just a faint hiss. I checked my headset cord, thinking maybe the connection was bad, and said again, hello. That's when I heard it. A whisper. Not the kind of whisper you make when you're trying not to wake someone. This one was tight, shaky. The kind you use when you're scared to even make a sound. He's under my bed. It was a kid's voice. I sat up straighter, pushing my chair closer to the console. Who's under your bed? The pause was long enough that I wondered if they'd hung up. Then, softly, me. I frowned. I'm sorry. Can you repeat that? It's me. He looks like me. Something about the way he said it, the way the words bled together like he didn't want to shape them with his mouth, made the hair on my neck rise. I switched the call to record and pulled up the location trace system. All right. Can you tell me your name? Another pause. I heard him inhale, shaky and wet, like he'd been crying for a while. My name's Dylan. Okay, Dylan. Where are your parents right now? They're gone. Gone where? They went to find him. Find who? I asked, though I already felt the cold shape of the answer in my head. The other me. My screen flashed with location data. A residential address about 12 miles out, near the county's edge. I typed it into the dispatch notes. The coordinates came through fine, but the street name? I never heard of it. It wasn't in the system map. Dylan, are you somewhere safe right now? I asked. I'm on the floor. Are you hurt? No, but he knows I'm here. That whisper, it wasn't just quiet. It sounded like he was pressing his lips right against the phone, like he didn't want anyone else in the room to hear. And I realized if he was whispering that low, and if the other him was under the bed, the other one could still hear him. I kept my voice steady. Dylan, I'm going to keep you on the phone while I send someone to your house, okay? Can you tell me what you see? I can see his hand. I gripped my pen tighter, jotting notes without thinking. What does it look like? Like mine, but wrong. Wrong how? It's too still. There was a muffled sound through the line. I thought maybe he'd shifted the phone, but then I heard it again, a low, dragging scrape like fingernails sliding against wood. My stomach tightened. Dylan, is that you making that sound? No. Is he moving? No, he's smiling. I looked over at the only other dispatcher on duty that night, Maria, but she was on her own call, headset tilted, typing fast. I didn't want to interrupt her. I toggled the call audio gain, trying to hear better. That's when I realized there was a second sound in the background. A whisper, faint and layered under Dylan's voice. It sounded exactly like him. He's on the phone, too. Dylan's voice came back, shaky. He's talking into his hands like me. The trace feed refreshed. The GPS had shifted 3 feet to the left, then back again. That wasn't supposed to happen unless the phone was moving. Dylan, is your phone in your hand? Yes. Don't move. Just stay where you are. Keep telling me what's happening. There was a rustle. Then, so soft I almost missed it. He's saying what I'm saying. I didn't understand at first. Then Dylan said, he's saying what I'm saying, and I heard it twice. Once from him, and once in that slightly delayed whisper in the background. Dylan, listen to me, I said. I need you to... The whispering doubled again. Both voices now, one barely behind the other, like an echo coming from under the bed. The copy's voice was just a hair slower, like it was catching up to him. I started typing into the chat window for the patrol car. ETA, 6 minutes. Dylan, keep talking to me, okay? Just keep talking. But he went quiet. Dylan. The only sound now was the twin whispering. One real time, one delayed. Then, all at once, they both stopped. A new voice came through the headset. It wasn't loud. It wasn't even aggressive. It was just the same whisper, but now it was only the second one. The delayed one. He's gone. I froze. Who's gone? The first one. My pulse thudded in my ears. Dylan, where's your phone right now? In my hand. Is anyone else there with you? Silence. Dylan. This time, the voice that came back was the same pitch, same timbre, but I couldn't tell which one it was. Yes. I muted my headset and flagged Maria, mouthing patch to patrol now. She frowned, clicked something, and I saw her eyes flicker to my screen. She mouthed back, that address isn't real. I unmuted. Dylan, I want you to stay very still. Officers are on their way. You can't find me. The voice was flat. It didn't even try to sound afraid anymore. I told myself it was just shock, or a prank, or maybe some sick older sibling messing around. But I kept hearing the faint delay under the words, like someone was still repeating them just a half-second behind. The patrol car reported in, negative on address. No house here. No structures at all. I should have ended the call. That's what protocol says. If there's no emergency location and no verification, you terminate and log. But my finger wouldn't press the button. Dylan, can you tell me where you are? You're here. A click. Not a hang up, just a sound, like teeth tapping against plastic. Maria stood up from her desk, headset off. Line's dead. I shook my head. No, it's still open. And it was. Even after the patrol cleared the area, even after I logged the incident as unable to locate, even after my shift ended at 6 a.m., the timer on that call was still running on my console. I unplugged my headset, packed my bag, and tried not to think about it. But when I got home and set my phone on the nightstand, it buzzed once. Unknown number. When I answered, there was no one there. Just breathing. And then a whisper. I can see your hand. I thought that after I left work, the call would fade from my mind. Most of them do. You take a deep breath, you go home, you eat something mindless, and the static of the shift drains away. But this one, it stuck. I tried to sleep, but I couldn't stop replaying that delayed whisper in my head. Not the boy's voice, the other one. The one just a fraction behind, as if it were listening through a wall and repeating everything a moment too late. It's the sort of detail that if you tell someone about it, they shrug. Maybe it's a bad connection. Maybe it's cross-feed from another line. That's what I told myself. But it didn't feel like that. It felt like something was leaning in, waiting for Dylan to finish speaking, then curling the same words back up through the receiver. By the time I came back for the next night's shift, the console clock read 11:02 p.m. The call was still there in the system. Still open. Still counting. 42 hours now. I asked our supervisor about it, trying to keep my voice casual. He just frowned and said, probably a glitch in the C80 log. It'll clear it. It didn't. An hour into the shift, I was sipping coffee when the same line lit up. The ID code was identical. My stomach tightened. 911, what's your emergency? The hiss came first again. Then, almost like the call had been paused and unpaused. He's still here. Dylan. I said before I could stop myself. Yes. The voice was low, shaky, but familiar. I'm still in my room. I typed the incident number into the log. Same address. Same coordinates. Still not on the map. Have you been there the whole time? I asked. Yes. I can't leave. My throat went dry. Why not? He copies me. The words dropped like a stone. What do you mean? When I move, he moves. When I breathe, he breathes. When I talk, his voice thinned. I could hear the way he pressed the phone closer, the whisper cracking. He talks too. In the faint bed of noise beneath Dylan's voice, I heard it again. That second whisper just behind the first. He talks too, it breathed. The lag was even smaller now. Not a full second. Maybe half. Dylan, where are your parents? I asked, though I knew what he'd say. They're gone. They didn't come back. Did they say where they went? They said they were going to look for him. And they didn't return? A long pause. No, I think he found them. I pressed my hand against my temple. Do you know what he wants? The whisper doubled again, both voices answering in unison. Dylan's first, then the shadow one. He wants to be me. I heard movement on the line, a shift of fabric, a dull knock like a head hitting wood. What's happening, Dylan? He's closer. Can you see him? I see his eyes. What do they look like? Like mine. The second voice repeated it, only the tone, it was wrong. Where Dylan's voice was shaky, the second was steady, almost calm. Like mine, it said. I muted my mic for a second and waved Maria over. She leaned in, and I switched the monitor to speaker so she could hear. We both listened. Dylan, don't hang up. Other voice, don't hang up. Maria's eyes widened. She mouthed record this. I toggled the system. It was already recording. Dylan, can you tell me exactly where you are in the room? I'm on the floor against the wall. My bed is in front of me. And he's under the bed? Yes. What is he doing right now? The answer came slow, as if he was afraid to say it. He's smiling. The second voice repeated it, dragging out the last word. Smiling. Something in my chest tightened. I'd heard a lot of bad things on this job. People screaming in pain, begging for help, gasping their last breaths. But this was worse. It was too quiet, too composed. I kept my voice even. Dylan, I want you to stay where you are. I'm going to send officers again. No. Why not? If you send them, he'll copy them too. Maria's eyes met mine. I couldn't tell if she was thinking this kid is delusional or we're out of our depth. Dylan, I said, are there any windows in your room? Yes. Can you open one? No. Why not? He'll come out. The second voice. He'll come out. There was a tiny, deliberate delay in the copy's voice now. Not like lag. Like choice. Like I wanted me to hear it wasn't just echoing. It was thinking. Dylan, what happens if you stop talking? The line went quiet. The silence stretched. My skin prickled. Then, a whisper. Not Dylan's. You'll hear me instead. The hairs on my arms rose. Maria whispered, we need to escalate this. She reached for the supervisor's line. I kept my focus on the call. Who am I speaking to? Me? Which one? A pause. Then the sound of fingernails dragging across the phone's mouthpiece. The one you can't see. The hiss swelled in my headset for a moment, and then Dylan's voice came back, panicked. Don't talk to him. He'll. The copy finished the sentence in perfect sync. Find you. Maria hung up from the supervisor's line, shaking her head. Patrol says no structures on that street. Again, Bill I typed in the CAD. Caller reports unknown entity mimicking speech. Voice delay decreasing. Possible mental health emergency / possible unknown threat. Dylan, I said, listen to me carefully. I'm not hanging up, but I need you to keep telling me what's happening. His breathing was fast now. He's moving his mouth, but he's not saying my words anymore. The second voice, softer, I'm saying mine. I glanced at the clock. The call had been live for 27 minutes. Dylan, what are you going to do? His voice cracked. I don't know. Is there anything in the room you can use to protect yourself? Another pause. He's smiling again. The copy's whisper came so close behind it now that it was almost on top of his. He's smiling again. Maria mouthed to me, I don't like this. I didn't either. Not one bit. There was a thump. Not loud, but heavy. Something hitting the floor on Dylan's side. His breath hitched. What was that? I asked. He put his hand out. The copy, I put my hand out. I heard my own pulse in my ears. Is it reaching toward you? Yes. Yes. Both voices perfectly overlapping now. My throat felt tight. Dylan, I want you to stand up in. No. Both voices again. Why not? If I move, he moves. The copy. If I move, he moves. And then silence. Not the kind you get when someone hangs up. This was deeper. The line was still live, but it felt empty, like the room on the other end had swallowed all sound. I leaned closer to the mic. Dylan, are you still there? The answer came in a whisper that I knew wasn't his. I'm here. The thing about this job is that you start to think you've heard all. Every strange call, every freak accident, every person who swears something's in their house. You file it away in the same mental cabinet. Because the second you start believing every strange thing someone tells you over the phone, you can't do the job anymore. That night, though, I kept my eyes glued to the timer on Dylan's call. Maria had been listening in for the last few minutes, her hand hovering over her own console like she might cut in. The supervisor was standing behind us now, too, watching the audio meters move even when neither of us was talking. All right, the supervisor said, leaning closer. Patrol's already rolling to the location. I knew what was coming. I'd heard it before. We all kept listening, Dylan's shaky breathing, and that other one, softer but steady, just beneath it. Sometimes it was perfectly in sync with him. Sometimes it spoke on its own. You hear it, right? Maria whispered to me, eyes locked on the console. I nodded. Dispatch confirmed the unit had arrived. I patched the call through so the officer on scene could hear too. "This is Unit 37 at," the officer's voice paused, like he was reading something twice. "There's no street sign here." I tapped my keyboard. "Coordinates still showing?" "Affirmative," but he cut off again. "There's nothing here. It's just woods. No driveway, no mailbox. Negative on residence." I shot a look at the supervisor. "We have a registered address in the call data. It's populated in the CED, but it's not matching GIS. Translation: the computer says it exists. The map says it doesn't." The officer came back over the channel. "We're going to push deeper, but so far." In my headset, Dylan's voice broke through. "They can't find me." Then, just half a breath later, the other voice. "They can't find me." The officer said, "Ma'am, who is that?" I should have told him it was just the caller. That's the normal thing to say. But I didn't, because I didn't know anymore. I kept my focus on Dylan. "Where exactly are you in your house?" "In my room." "Is there a door to the outside?" "No." "Windows?" "Yes." "Can you open one?" "No." "Why not?" "He's looking at me." The second voice. "I'm looking at you." The officer's voice cut in again. "We're at the exact GPS ping, but there's nothing. Just a clearing. No signs of a foundation. No tire tracks. Nothing." Maria leaned closer to me, murmuring, "Glitch?" I didn't answer. The clearing thing, it didn't sit right. Because I could still hear Dylan breathing, whispering, answering my questions like he was there in a real room with walls and a bed and a phone line. I said, "Dylan, if I asked you to walk to your front door, could you?" A pause. "Yes." "Okay, I want you to—" "No." "Why not?" "He'll walk too." The second voice, quieter now. "I'll walk too." I had this awful mental picture, not just of something under a bed copying him, but of it unfolding itself and following him exactly, step for step, like a shadow that doesn't need light. The officer came back, sounding annoyed now. "We're calling this UTL. No sign of." Dylan's whisper cut him off. "Don't let them leave." The second voice echoed, almost cheerful. "Don't let them leave." I felt my mouth go dry. "Dylan, the officers can't find your house. I need you to." "They're not supposed to." "The copy. They're not supposed to." Something about that made my skin crawl. Like it wasn't just stating a fact. It was saying this is the way it's meant to be. The supervisor tapped my shoulder and pointed to the CAD log. "Terminate. Call's bogus. No verifiable address. No actionable intel. You know the policy." I stared at the screen. Terminate meant I hit the button, the line went dead, and this became a weird blip in our shift history. I should have done it. Instead, I said, "Dylan, I'm going to stay with you for a little longer." "Good." "The copy." "Good." The supervisor frowned, but walked off, muttering something about wasted resources. For a while, neither Dylan nor the other voice said much. I could hear faint sounds in the background. What might have been creaking wood, maybe the rustle of sheets. Then Dylan whispered, "He's closer." "How close?" "He's touching my leg." "The copy." "I'm touching your leg." Maria's eyes were wide now. She mouthed, "What is this?" I typed in the chat log. "Unusual auditory phenomenon continues. Call cannot be triangulated beyond initial coordinates. Caller reports proximity of subject." Dylan's breathing hitched. He's smiling again. "The copy." I'm smiling again. The words overlapped almost perfectly this time. The delay was gone. It felt like the thing had caught up. The clock on the call read 1 hour, 14 minutes, and 37 seconds. Over an hour. That's almost unheard of in our world. Then, without warning, the console flashed. Call terminated. I sat back, startled. I hadn't hit the button. Neither had Maria. The call Idaho vanished from the active list. The audio meters went still. Maria let out a shaky breath. Finally, the relief didn't last, because even though the system said it was over, I could still hear him in my headset. No ID number. No active channel. Just a faint hiss. And then, "Are you still there?" It was Dylan's voice. I didn't answer. "I can see you." The other voice, the copy, followed right on top of it. "I can see you." I yanked the headset off and stared at it like it might start moving. My hands felt cold, my fingertips buzzing. Maria noticed. "What's wrong?" Nothing, I lied. Just tired. I set the headset down and try to focus on the next incoming call, a drunk driver on the interstate, the kind of thing that usually pulls you back into the real world. But all through the rest of the shift, I kept glancing at the console. The terminated call never came back on the list. No ID, no log, no audio file in the archive. And yet, every so often, in the middle of another call, I swore I could hear it. That double whisper, just beneath everything else that I clocked out at 6:02 a.m. The sky outside the dispatch center had that bruised, grayish tint that only exists between night and morning. Too pale for midnight, too cold for sunrise. My body felt heavy, like the night had settled inside my bones. I'd spent 8 hours hunched over a headset, chasing a voice that didn't want to be found. They never found the boy. They never even found the house. When the officers arrived at the address he'd given me, it wasn't there. Not wrong street or wrong number, just nothing. Empty lot, overgrown weeds. No mailbox, no driveway. And the county database? The address didn't exist in it at all. The call itself had ended around 2:47 a.m., at least according to the system log. One click, terminated. But the whispering, God, the whispering hadn't stopped. Even after the timer went dark, the soft, uneven breaths still crawled through my earpiece, brushing against my ear like the boy was leaning in closer. Every so often I'd hear a syllable, maybe help, maybe just a hiss, the kind of sound that made your scalp tighten without you realizing it. I'd flagged the issue for the tech team. They ran checks, shrugged, told me it was probably a ghost call, the kind of glitch that makes the system think the line is still open when it's not. Except ghost calls don't whisper your name. They don't say it twice in that wet, cracked little voice, like they've been crying for hours. I drove home with the radio on low. My eyes kept drifting to the rearview mirror, not because I thought someone was there, but because I couldn't stand the thought of not looking. I passed through streets I'd known my whole life, but that morning they felt wrong, like the dings had shifted half an inch while I was gone. By the time I pulled into my driveway, the sun was barely up. My house sat in that early morning stillness where nothing has started yet. Curtains drawn, lawn damp with dew. Inside, the air smelled faintly of dust and coffee grounds. My boots felt like bricks, so I kicked them off in the hallway and let my keys clatter into the ceramic bowl by the door. I should have gone straight to bed, but my head was still full of him. The boy, that voice, that thin, desperate rasp. Every dispatcher gets calls they can't shake, but this one, it didn't feel like a memory. It felt like something that had followed me home. I poured a glass of water, standing in the kitchen while the fridge hummed too loudly. My phone buzzed on the counter, a text from Tessa, the dispatcher on the next shift. Weird, that line from earlier? Still showing as active. My stomach clenched. I told myself it was just the system acting up, same as before. But my fingers were cold around the phone. I typed back, glitch, tell tech. Her reply came almost instantly. Already did. They said it's impossible. Line's not connected to any account now. Just empty. Empty. That word stuck to me like static. I set the phone down. I didn't answer her again. By the time I made it to my bedroom, the blackout curtains had turned the room into a cave. I didn't even bother with pajamas, just collapsed face first onto the bed. My body ached, and my head throbbed from hours of straining to hear a voice that refused to be clear. Somewhere between awake and asleep, I thought I heard it again. Not through a headset, not through a phone, just here. At first, it was faint enough that I could pretend it was my own breath echoing in my ears. But then the sound separated from me. It was lower, slower, damp, like it was seeping up through the floorboards. Whispering. I froze. The blankets felt suddenly too heavy, like they were holding me down. My ears strained, trying to pick out words, but it was all soft hisses and small catches of air, like a child trying not to cry. The noise wasn't coming from the hallway. It wasn't from outside. It was under me, under the bed. My mind tried to run through a checklist. Could be a draft. Could be pipes. Could be the neighbors. Could be help. It was the same voice. I sat up slowly, my weight shifting on the mattress. The whispering didn't pause. It kept spilling upward, curling into the air, brushing my legs. I told myself not to look, that nothing good ever comes from looking. But some part of me, the part that had sat there in the dispatch chair for hours, listening and waiting, needed to see. I swung my legs over the side of the bed and lowered my head, pressing my ear toward the floor. The carpet fibers tickled my cheek. The voice was clearer now. Cold. My throat tightened. I forced myself to lean down further until I could see into the darkness beneath the bed. It wasn't empty. At first, it was just a shape, a smudge in the shadows. Then my eyes adjusted, and I saw a face turn toward me. Pale, lips parted, eyes wide. It was him, the boy. His mouth moved, and the whisper threaded up into my ears. Don't hang up. I jerked back so fast I hit my head on the nightstand. The lamp rattled. My breath came hard, and my skin burned cold all over. When I looked again, the space under the bed was empty. Just dust and the outline of storage boxes I hadn't touched in months. I sat there for a long time, gripping the edge of the mattress. My ears were ringing, but I could still feel the whisper in them, like it had sunk into the tissue. I told myself to call someone, Tessa, the tech team, hell, even one of the officers from last night. But what would I say? That the ghost call had followed me home and was hiding under my bed? Instead, I grabbed my phone and opened the call log. The line from earlier, it was still there. Timer still running. 9 hours, 17 minutes, and climbing. I hit end call. Nothing happened. The timer just kept going. And then, through the phone's tiny speaker, I heard it. A faint, uneven breath. I dropped the phone onto the bed like it had burned me. My pulse was loud in my ears. I backed toward the door, not taking my eyes off the phone. The whisper was louder now. I left the bedroom and shut the door behind me. My house felt smaller than it had an hour ago, the walls leaning in. I went to the living room, sat on the couch, and turned on the TV, not to watch, but just to fill the space with something else. But even over the sound, I could hear him. That night, I didn't sleep, and the call still hasn't ended. That IT started with breathing. Not the kind you hear when someone's winded or scared, but this long, slow, almost wet sound. Like the air had to push its way through something thick before it could come out. I remember staring at the blinking light on my console. The call was already connected before I put my headset on. That happens sometimes, silent dial-in from a pocket or a bad signal. But this didn't sound like static or background noise. This was deliberate. 911, what's your emergency? No answer, just breathing. I repeated it, trying to keep my voice calm, professional. Sometimes people freeze. Sometimes they're in danger and can't speak. But then, I heard it, a faint scratching, above the breathing, like fingernails dragging along something hollow. It was hard to tell if it was close to the phone or far away, but it was steady, slow. Sir or ma'am, if you can't speak, I need you to tap the phone once for yes, twice for no. Can you do that? Still nothing. Just the scrape and the breathing. I was about to flag it as a possible open line and start tracing when a man's voice suddenly burst through the static. Don't talk too loud. He was whispering, but there was this urgency in it, like he'd been holding his breath for too long. What's your name? I asked. Dan. He cut himself off. Then, in an even quieter voice, it stops when I talk. What stops? The sound. I leaned closer to the console, not that it helped. My own breathing felt too loud. Dan, where are you right now? I'm in my apartment. Okay, what's your address? I typed it in as he gave it. Old building on West Pender. I've been in that area before. 6-story brick block, half the tenants long-term. The kind of place where the hallway carpets smell like dust and boiled cabbage. What's happening there? I asked. He stopped again. And sure enough, the scratching sound cut out. Just his breathing, quick and shallow now. Dan, see? It's listening, he whispered. It's right above me. My eyes flicked to the screen, reading over the notes I'd started. Are you talking about someone in your apartment? No. Above you. You mean the unit upstairs? No, he said again, and his voice cracked. Not the unit. Above me. That's when I realized. He didn't mean the floor above. He meant the ceiling. I kept my voice steady. You mean in the ceiling space? He gave this shaky, almost relieved breath, like I finally understood. Yeah, in the crawl space. I looked down at the building info. It didn't have a crawl space. At least, not over the residential units. Old place like that, just plaster, wood, and a whole lot of pipe. Maybe a tiny void between floors, but not enough for someone to move around in. Are you sure it's not a neighbor? Could be the pipes, rodents. It's not rodents, he hissed. It's big. It moves like it knows I'm here. When I talk, it stops. Then it waits. Even through the line, I could feel his fear. Not the panicked, shouting kind. The brittle, quiet kind, where someone's holding themselves together by a thread. Is it making the sound now? I asked. Yes. I stopped talking. Listened. The scratching was faint again, irregular this time. A few seconds, then nothing. Then softer, but closer. I don't know why, but I lowered my own voice too. Okay, are you able to move to another room? No, he whispered. It follows. That one word hit me harder than I wanted to admit. Follows. Dan, I'm sending officers to your location. Stay on the line with me until they arrive. I started dispatching the unit while keeping my ear on the call. He didn't say anything for a while, and neither did I. Just a breathing and that faint, deliberate scrape. Then, suddenly, silence. I almost thought the call had dropped, but then I heard him inhale sharply. It's right above me now, he whispered. I froze. How do you know? I can feel it. The way he said it made my skin crawl. I told him to stay calm, that help was on the way, but my voice felt thin, useless. Then came a new sound, a deep, low thud, like weight settling on wood. I heard it through the line, but it was so distinct I almost felt it through my desk. Dan's voice shook. It's lying down, right over me. I typed a note for the officers. Possible intruder above ceiling. Then, almost against my better judgment, I asked, Dan, what does it sound like now? He was quiet for a moment. Then, breathing. My stomach turned. The scrape had stopped, but the sound that replaced it was heavier now. Not wet like before. Just slow, steady, and far too deep to be his. I caught movement on my monitor. The responding unit was less than 2 minutes away. I tried to keep him talking. Dan, you said it follows. Has this happened before? Last night, and the night before. But it only started coming closer today. The way he said coming closer made me picture something dragging itself inch by inch toward him in the dark. The officers pulled up outside on my GPS. I told him they were there, that he'd be okay. He didn't answer. I heard footsteps on the line, his moving slowly. The floorboards creaked, and then the breathing above shifted too, following him step for step. The hairs on my arms stood up. I was about to speak when a loud knock came through my headset. The officers. I heard them calling his name, muffled but clear. Dan whispered, It's still above me. Let the officers in, I told him. You're safe now. There was a pause, and then the click of a lock. Voices in the room. Boots on the floor. The sound of movement above gone. I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. But then one of the officers came on the line. Dispatch, this is Unit 12. We've cleared the apartment. No one else is here. I told them about the sounds. About the crawl space. The officer hesitated. There is no crawl space. Just plaster and joists. We checked. Nowhere for anyone to hide. They said they'd stay a few minutes to reassure him. But as the call ended, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had been in there. Not someone. Something. And it had known we were listening that I don't think I'll ever forget his voice. It had that kind of panic that doesn't rise all at once, but just stays at a constant, shaking level, like his fear had nowhere else to go. The call had been quiet for almost a full minute. Just his breathing. That ragged, shallow inhale, and the faint scrape of something I couldn't place. Then, barely louder than the air in the line, he whispered, She's right above me. My headset felt heavier in that moment, like the words themselves carried weight. I asked him to repeat it, because I wasn't sure I'd heard right. He obeyed, but slower. She's right above me. I could hear the way his mouth barely opened when he said it. He was afraid to make sound. And then he added, like he didn't want to tell me, but couldn't stop himself. I can see the nails. I remember blinking, staring at the dispatcher screen, my cursor hovering over the map pin for his address. You can see nails? I asked. His answer came fast, but still in that harsh whisper. They're pushing down through the wood, right over my head, like someone's pressing them from the other side. I didn't understand at first. I pictured nails being hammered, but then the sound came through, tiny, uneven creaks in the wood above him, and every few seconds, a dry little pop like something forcing pressure against a plank. I typed quick notes into the system and glanced at the building info that had loaded. 2 floors. Apartments on both. The man was on the top floor. So, there shouldn't be an above for someone to be in. I asked him, "You're in your unit right now?" "Top floor." "Yes." He didn't even hesitate. "I'm in my bedroom. I can see them. Right here." I could hear his fingertip tapping the wood. He whispered each tap, like counting in his head. "She moves when I stop talking," he said suddenly. "What do you mean?" "She waits. Like she's listening. But if I talk for too long, she starts pushing again. Sometimes scratching." There was a faint shift in the sound. Not loud. Just this tiny drag like skin on dry wood. I felt my stomach go tight. I asked him for his name. "Ryan." I told him help was on the way. Which was true. I'd already flagged his call for dispatch. But I kept talking because there's a certain tone people have when they're on the very edge, and if you let them drift too far into silence, you can lose them before you know it. "Ryan, you said nails are pushing through the wood above you. You mean in the ceiling?" "Yes. 3 of them. Right where I'm looking." I pulled up the building's maintenance diagrams while he spoke. There was nothing above his unit except roof structure. No attic, no crawl space. Just insulation and beams. But I kept my voice steady. "What do you see now?" A long pause. Then, "They're moving. Like she's dragging her hand across the wood. The nails, they bent a little. She's right on the other side. I can feel it." I didn't like that he said feel. I try to ground him. "Is there anyone else in your apartment?" "No." "How long has this been happening?" Another pause. "I noticed it last night. I thought it was the pipes. But then, this morning, I woke up and they were already pressing down. Like she'd been there all night." There was a faint creak in the background. Then silence. Then his breathing got sharper. "She stopped," he whispered. "Ryan, what's happening now?" "She's waiting again." For the first time, I thought I heard it, breathing that wasn't his. Slow, steady, like someone laying completely still just a few inches from the mic, with only the wood between us. I pulled up the map for responding units. ETA for minutes. It felt like an hour. I asked Ryan to tell me about his apartment. Anything to keep him steady. He described the layout in quick, nervous bursts. The door to the hall, the bathroom to his left, the window over the bed. The ceiling was low enough he could touch it if he stood on the mattress. "She's right where my hands would be if I reached up," he said. "I think she's looking down at me. I think she knows I can see where she is." My cursor hovered over the building's structural notes. No crawl space. No access panels. No reason anyone should be up there. Then he whispered. She moved again. The nails made a soft clicking sound. One of them pushed down a fraction more. "Ryan," I said slowly, "I need you to step out of that room. Go somewhere safer." "I can't," he whispered back. "Why not?" "Every time I move, she scratches." The sound proved him right. A slow, deliberate drag of something sharp. It stopped when he froze. 3 minutes, I told myself. Just keep him talking. "Ryan," as she tried to come through. Silence. "Ryan, I don't think she needs to. I think she's already inside." The line went completely quiet except for that faint second breathing. It didn't make sense. It wasn't like she was on the roof. It was too close, too muffled, like she was between layers of the building that weren't supposed to exist. I could feel my own pulse in my throat. I wanted to tell him to run, but I knew that telling him might set her off, whatever her was. The dispatcher map flashed. Units were in the building. I told Ryan that help was right there. His whisper came faster now. "Don't let them open the door too loud. She doesn't like loud." I relayed that to the officers. I could hear the muffled knock over the line. Ryan didn't answer. The knocking came again, harder. And then, over his phone, I heard the nails push down harder than before. 3 loud pops of stressed wood. Ryan made a sound like he was holding in a scream. "She's right above me," he said again. And this time his voice cracked. "She's smiling." That's when the line went dead, that I couldn't stop thinking about his voice. That thin, trembling whisper cutting through the static. "She's right above me." Even after the call ended, it stayed in my head, looping like a song you don't want to remember. He had been so sure of what he saw. Nails pushing down from the ceiling, the slow, deliberate sound of something crawling. The address he gave had checked out. Only, there wasn't supposed to be a crawl space there. It was an old municipal storage building. 1 floor, concrete foundation, no attic. Now here I was, back on shift, coffee cooling in my hand, staring at the dispatch console like it was going to give me an answer. I told myself I was overthinking it. Weird calls happen all the time, but it didn't feel like just another weird call. It felt like the beginning of something I hadn't been warned about. It was an hour into my shift when the line lit up again. Different number. Same voice. "I can hear you," he whispered. I froze. "Sir, is this?" They're walking right below me. I glanced at the address on the screen. It was the same one. Same building. The one that had no crawl space. "Sir, you said you were on the ground floor, correct?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Yes. I think I am." Then he gave this shaky laugh, like the kind you let out when you realize you're in way over your head. "But I can hear them. They're talking. They're looking for me." Something in my chest went cold. I muted my mic for a second and flagged the call for immediate dispatch. Unit 3 to 12, Unit 3 to 19, possible distress at the municipal storage building. Caller says subjects are in the building. Approach with caution. The officers confirmed they were on their way. I went back to the call. "Sir, you're safe. Stay where you are. They'll find you." He went quiet for a moment. Then, "No, they won't. They're not looking here. They're looking down there." "Down where?" I asked. "Below." I turned in my chair to look at the wall map. That building was on a slab foundation. The only below was dirt. I heard the faint sound of footsteps through his line. They were steady, measured, like boots on concrete. The responding units called in. "Dispatch, we're inside the building. No sign of the caller yet. Searching now. He says he hears you walking below him," I said. My own voice sounded strange in my ears. There was a pause. Then, "Dispatch, we're on the ground floor. There's no below." I knew that, but I also knew the sound I was hearing through the man's phone wasn't coming from nowhere. "Sir, can you knock on something near you? Anything that might let them hear you?" He tapped 3 times. The sound was muffled, like it had to travel through thick wood before it reached me. The officers reported back, negative on any tapping. "We're not hearing it. Can you try again?" I asked the man. "I can't," he whispered. "She's closer now." "Who is?" He didn't answer, just the sound of slow breathing. I checked the call timer, 5 minutes and 28 seconds. Not long, but it felt like we'd been talking for an hour. Then he said something I didn't understand at first. "The air's wrong here." "What do you mean?" "It's heavy, like being underwater." Static crackled through the line. For a second, I thought I lost him. Then I realized the static had a rhythm, a slow in and out, breathing, but not his. The units radioed in again. "Dispatch, we've cleared the east side. No contact yet. Starting west side now." I was gripping the edge of the desk, so hard my knuckles hurt. They were in the same building. They were all in the same building. So why couldn't they find each other? "Sir, can you tell me what you see right now?" I asked. "Just wood. Old wood. Boards nailed together. There's no door. No windows. Just boards that didn't match any part of the building's layout." I knew because I pulled up the blueprints on my second monitor. It was just a big rectangular space, a small office up front, and a bathroom. No partitions. No sealed rooms. "Dispatch, there's no one here," one of the units said. "He's here," I shot back. "Keep looking." The man whispered, "They're not going to find me. I think this place isn't supposed to be here." His voice cracked on that last part. It wasn't the tone of someone being dramatic. It was the tone of someone telling you the truth for the first time. I stared at the blueprints, and something caught my eye. The copy I had on file was dated 1973. "Stand by," I told the units. I dug through the records database. There was an earlier set of plans from 1962. Almost the same layout, except for one thing. There had been a basement. Not a normal basement. The notes called it auxiliary holding. No explanation. No photos. In the 1973 version, it was gone. Completely removed from the plans. I didn't like what that suggested. Either the basement was demolished, or they had just decided to stop acknowledging it existed. I went back on the line. "Sir, listen to me. There might be something under the building. If you can find stairs." "No stairs," he said quickly. I think it's a hatch, but it's sealed." "I can't." The radio crackled. "Dispatch, we found a hatch in the floor of the west corner, covered in old shelving. Want us to open it?" I didn't even think. "Yes. Open it now." A few seconds of silence. Then one of the officers said, "Dispatch, this hatch isn't supposed to be here." The man on the phone whispered, I can hear them opening it. But before I could say anything, the officer's voice came back, sharp and urgent. Negative. There's nothing under here. It's just dirt, packed solid. No cavity. That didn't make sense. The caller had just said he heard them. Sir, where are you exactly? I asked, my voice breaking just a little. I told you, he whispered. I'm on the ground floor. Then, after a pause, I think I'm in the wrong one. I didn't understand. The wrong what? But the line clicked dead. The officers did one more sweep, then cleared the scene. No sign of him. No sign of anyone. When I finally logged the call, I noticed something strange. The phone number he'd called from wasn't in the system anymore. Not even as a disconnected number. It was just gone. I stayed late after my shift, pulling every set of blueprints I could find. Every revision told a different story. Sometimes the basement was there. Sometimes it wasn't. One set even showed a second floor that was never built. It was like the building couldn't decide what it was. And if that was true, maybe it could decide where you ended up, too. I never told the others about that second call, but I still hear his voice sometimes, faint in the static of an empty line. They're walking right below me. You learn, working in dispatch, that silence is never really silent. Even in the dead of night, with no calls coming in, you still hear something. An air vent rattling, the hum of the old fluorescent lights, the faint clicking of someone's pen across the room. The brain fills the empty space with little noises so you don't lose your mind. But that night, I heard nothing but the scrape. It started soft, so faint I thought it was interference. Just this light, dragging sound in the background of the man's voice, like someone pulling their fingernails across a piece of old wood. I remember sitting forward in my chair, the phone pressed tight against my ear, holding my breath just so I could hear it better. He was whispering, always whispering. She's still here. She hasn't stopped. Where is she now? I asked him. A pause. Then, closer. It was the way he said it, like he was trying not to move his lips, afraid the sound of his own breath would give him away. And then the scrape came again. Long, slow, nails on wood. But this time, it felt deliberate, measured, not the frantic sound of someone clawing to escape. This was slow, like she was savoring it. Are you safe right now? I asked. My voice cracked, which I hated. Dispatchers aren't supposed to let emotion bleed into the call. But something about his tone was bleeding into me. I don't know, he whispered. Are you still in the same spot? Another pause. The scrape stopped. No, he said finally. I can't be. She knows. I signaled the responder channel, asking for an update. Nothing. Just dead air and static. My screen showed their GPS signal still on site, but no movement. And then the man said something I still think about. I can hear them walking, he whispered. You can hear the responders? Yes, below me. Below him. That didn't make sense. According to the address, according to the blueprints of that old structure, there was nothing beneath his floor. No basement. Just foundation and dirt. I had confirmed it with the county records myself earlier in the night. But I didn't say any of that to him. I just asked, can you call out to them? I can't, he breathed. If I make a sound, she'll see me. She already knows where you are, I said without thinking. And as soon as the words left my mouth, I regretted them. Because the scrape stopped. And in that gap of silence, he spoke again, barely more than breath. She's looking at me now. My chair creaked as I sat up straight. Who is? He didn't answer. Sir, are you in danger? And then, faint, but enough to raise every hair on my arms, I heard it. Not the scrape. Breathing. Slow, deep, deliberate. Not his. Too close to the receiver. I pulled the headset off for half a second, my own breath coming fast before forcing myself to put it back on. Sir, can you tell me what's happening? And then there was a sound. A sound I hope I never hear again in my life. It wasn't a scream. It wasn't even a cry. It was a sigh. Heavy, low, like someone exhaling after holding their breath for too long. And in that sigh, there was almost a sound of relief. And the scrape started again, but it was different now. Faster. Closer. Like she was dragging her nails across the floorboards on her way to him. I yelled into the mic for the responders to push inside, break doors, whatever they had to do. But then the scrape slowed. And slowed. Until it just stopped. For maybe 5 seconds, there was nothing. No movement. No breathing. Just dead silence. And then, the line went dead. I sat there, staring at the blinking red light of the disconnected call, like maybe if I stared long enough, it would reconnect. It didn't. The responders claimed when they finally breached the property, the place was empty. No man, no signs of struggle. But there was something else. On the floor in the center of the main room was a long, uneven groove in the wood, about the length of a man lying down, as if something or someone had been dragged. The officers wouldn't talk about it much after that, said it was probably nothing. But I saw the photos in the incident file. I saw the way the wood fibers were frayed at the end of the groove, almost like they'd been torn upward by nails. They closed the case as unable to locate subject. I kept thinking about the last thing he said. Not even the words, but the way he said them. The emptiness in his voice when he realized he couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't hide anymore. And I think about the silence after. That wasn't just silence. It was the sound of something finally getting what it wanted. And the part that really gets me is knowing it might still be there, somewhere below, waiting for the next voice to answer back. I was halfway through my midnight coffee when the line crackled. It wasn't the usual hum of bad reception. It was thinner, shakier, almost like a whisper trying to keep itself alive. Hello? 911. Can you hear me? The voice was male, older, breathing hard. His tone had that uneven stutter of someone who's been holding in fear for too long and just lost the strength to hide it. I hear you, I said. What's your emergency? There's something in my yard. I glanced at the clock. 12:47 a.m. Most of our night calls were either domestic arguments or drunk drivers, but the way he said something made me sit up straighter. What kind of something? He didn't answer right away. I could hear movement on the other end, the crunch of leaves under boots, wind pressing against the receiver. I don't know. Shadows. They're moving. I've been seeing him since the power went out. I leaned back in my chair, tried to keep my voice calm. You're saying you're seeing shadows moving? Yes, he hissed. Not mine. Not from anything. They stretch. They crawl. I wrote down the address. County Line Road, near the end of the old farmland stretch. Not many houses out there, just pockets of empty barns and fields that felt like they'd been abandoned a century ago. The thing about a total blackout in a rural area is it's not like the city. Out here, when the lights go out, there's nothing left. No glow from street lamps. No distant cars. The darkness is whole. It feels like it swallows you. What's your name, sir? I asked. Harold. He was whispering now, like he didn't want to be overheard. Harold. Is anyone else in the house with you? No. I live alone. I could hear his breathing change, shorter, sharper bursts. They're closer now, he said. I shine my light at them, and the flashlight dies. Every time. I've gone through 3 batteries in the last half hour. They don't like the light. I tap my pen against the desk. My instinct said to treat it like a possible intruder case. Maybe kids messing with him in the blackout. But the part of me that had worked here for years, the part that had taken enough strange rural calls to know better, kept quiet. I'm sending deputies your way, I told him. Stay inside. Keep your doors locked. Can you do that for me? I tried. They're not just outside anymore. The way he said it made my scalp prickle. Where are they now? In the hall. For a second, I thought the call had dropped, but I could still hear something faint, like the sound of cloth dragging against wood. Harold, I said. The line hissed, and then he whispered so softly I had to strain to catch it. They move when I'm not looking at them. He let out a shuddery laugh, almost like he hated himself for saying it out loud. I keep turning my head, and they're closer. I don't understand. I'm not crazy. I try to ground him. Harold, I believe you. Where are you in the house right now? In the kitchen. How about one of those old lanterns? Propane. It's the only light that stayed on. I heard a small pop on the line, like the shift of pressure when someone opens a door. They stopped moving, he said. They're all standing still now, just watching. Something deep in my gut told me to keep him talking. Harold, I need you to describe what you're seeing. Slowly. His voice trembled, but he tried. They look like people. Not tall, maybe 5 feet. But they're wrong. Their arms are too long. Their heads tilt too far to one side, like their necks don't hold them right. And they don't breathe. I glanced at the other dispatcher, who was frozen mid-typing, eyes locked on me. She could hear everything. The hiss on the line deepened, like Harold had put the phone close to his chest. I could hear the faint flicker of the lantern. "They're in the doorway now," he whispered. "4 of them. They don't blink. Oh God, they're smiling." "Harold, listen to me," I said, keeping my tone level. "Do not let the light go out. Do you understand?" I'm trying. His voice cracked. "The propane's low. I didn't think I'd need it tonight." I could hear him fumbling with something metallic, maybe the lantern's knob. Then a long, low scrape in the background. Not like a footstep, more like fingernails running along the wall. "They're spreading out," he said. 2 in the hall, 2 in the kitchen now. I can't watch them all." His breathing got louder. "Harold, can you get outside?" No. They're at every door. I think they're waiting for it to go out." I signaled to my partner to keep the deputies updated. She mouthed back, "They're 15 minutes out." That wasn't soon enough. "Harold, listen to me carefully," I said. "You need to stay in the brightest light you have. Do not turn your back to them. Keep your eyes moving. Can you do that?" He didn't answer right away. Then I heard it, his voice broken and small. "I think one's in front of me now." I didn't see it move. "It's just closer." The way he said it made my chest feel tight. I could hear him swallow. The hiss of the lantern was uneven now, sputtering. "Harold, keep talking to me," I urged. "Describe what it's doing." "It's smiling wider. Its mouth is too big. I can see teeth now. Too many. And they're moving in its mouth like they're alive." I felt my stomach turn. The sputtering got louder, a wet cough of gas trying to stay lit. "They're all moving now," he said quickly. "All at once. Oh God, they're all." The lantern went out. The sound that followed was not human. It was low like a growl, but stretched and thin until it almost sounded like laughter. The line went quiet except for Harold's ragged breathing. "They're right here," he whispered. "I can feel them around me." Cole, I heard movement. Not the shuffle of feet, but the long drag of something soft against wood. "Harold, the deputies are almost there. Just hold on." He let out a sharp breath, almost a sob. I can't see anything." Then, a whisper on the line that wasn't his. "I swear to God, Salah, I heard it." A voice, faint but clear. "He can't see us, but we can see him." The call ended. When the deputies arrived, the house was empty. The propane lantern was still sitting on the kitchen table, unlit. The doors were locked from the inside. No sign of Harold. And the only thing they found was a single dark handprint on the kitchen wall. Not painted, not burned, just there, stained into the wood like it had always been part of the house. I thought he'd calmed down. When I called him back, his voice was still trembling, but it was a different kind of fear this time. Not that panicked, screaming kind of fear you hear in people who think something's about to happen. It was quieter, like something had already happened. "Yeah, I'm still here," he said, like he had to remind himself. They're closer." The line crackled. I could hear his breathing again, shallow, sharp, like he was trying not to let it show. "Sir," I said, "you said before they were at the edge of the field. Is that still where you see them?" He didn't answer right away. I could picture him, eyes locked on the darkness beyond his porch, mouth slightly open, not even realizing he was holding the phone too far from his mouth. "They're not moving," he whispered. Then he swallowed, like the words were too heavy. "But they're closer." I didn't understand what he meant at first. If they weren't moving, how could they? And then it clicked. "Sir, when you say they're closer, do you mean they're just—" I don't see them move. I just look away for a second, and they're closer. I felt my throat tighten. I know that doesn't make sense, at least not in the real world, but the way he said it, it didn't sound like a metaphor. I tried to get more details. "How many do you see right now?" He hesitated. 4, no, wait, 5. They're tall, thin. They don't have faces." I asked if he could shine his flashlight on them again. "No," he said quickly, almost snapping at me. "Every time I turn it on, they stop being there. Then when it dies, they're back, and they're closer than before." "I'm not." He stopped mid-sentence. "Sir, I think one's by the shed." The line went dead quiet. I listened, but there wasn't even breathing this time. Just a faint crackle from the dead zone between our voices. "Sir, can you confirm what you're seeing?" I asked, keeping my tone steady. "That's part of the job. If you sound afraid, they'll feel it too." He didn't answer right away. Then, almost too quietly to hear, "It's taller than the shed." I felt my hand clench around the receiver. I knew the layout he described earlier. His shed wasn't small. The roof would have been at least 8 feet high. "Are you inside your house right now?" I asked. "Yes." A pause. I locked the door. His voice wavered like he wasn't sure if that mattered. I asked about windows, if they were closed. He gave a shaky laugh, one of those short, humorless ones people do when they realize how hopeless something is. "They can see me," he said. That sentence didn't sound like fear. It sounded like acceptance. I told him to get away from the windows and stay on the line while we sent someone out. He mumbled something I didn't catch. I had to ask him to repeat it. "They're in the yard now." He started describing them again, but slower this time, like he was forcing himself to memorize what he was seeing. "They don't bend when they walk. They don't swing their arms. They just get closer. And every time I blink, it's like—" He stopped. Then I heard it. Not from my end. From his. A single, sharp tap against glass. He didn't speak. And then, another tap. Slower this time. I asked him which window it was. His voice dropped to almost nothing. "Kitchen. Right behind me." I told him not to turn around. Not to give them the reaction they wanted. But he whispered, "It's too late." And then he said something I'll never forget. "I can see the reflection in the glass. There's more than 5 now." There was this awful silence after that. Not like the call had dropped. More like he'd stopped existing in the same space I was in. I could still hear the faint crackle of the line, but no breath, no movement. When he finally spoke again, his voice sounded wrong. "They're not shadows." I felt something in my stomach twist. "What do you mean?" "They're not on the ground," he said. And then, almost gently, "They're standing up." That's when the line started cutting in and out. I heard static, then part of his voice, then more static. Getting closer. "Don't." "Light's gone again." I shouted for him to stay with me. But all I got was one last sentence before the call dropped completely. "They're inside now." The dispatcher next to me glanced over when I put the phone down. She could tell from my face something was wrong. When the patrol car finally reached his address 20 minutes later, the report was short. No sign of forced entry. No sign of the man. Power's still out for miles. Only thing they found was his flashlight in the grass. Battery's dead. I thought the worst had passed when the power came back. I was wrong. It wasn't the grid. That much I knew the second I heard it. The sharp, choking chug of a generator kicking on somewhere in the background of the open call. It was too close to be a neighbor's. I could almost feel the low vibration through my headset, like it was under my own desk. "Sir," I said, leaning into the mic. "Sounds like you got backup power now. Are you safe?" His breathing came in jagged bursts. I'd learned to read silence, and this wasn't relief. This was hesitation. He was deciding whether to tell me the truth. "They're already here," he whispered. It was the way he said "here" that made my skin prickle. Not outside. Not coming. Here. I shifted in my chair, my own reflection staring back at me from the blacked-out window in front of the dispatch console. The fluorescent lights overhead buzzed faintly. I wanted them to be louder to drown out the sound of his breathing in my ear. "Who's there with you?" I asked. The line didn't answer right away. Then, in a voice that sounded too tight, too contained, he said, "Shadows." Now, any other night, I would have thought he was drunk, high, or in the middle of a mental break. But I'd been on the first call with him. I'd heard that screaming in the distance. I felt something in my gut that told me this wasn't just paranoia. "What do you mean by shadows?" I said, keeping my tone level the way we're trained. "They don't move," he said. "Not when I'm looking, but when I look away." He trailed off. I heard a faint hum behind him, the generator, then something sharper. A scrape, like wood against wood. "Where are they now?" He swallowed, the sound wet and close in the headset. "In the hall." But closer. A little shiver of cold ran down my spine. I checked the clock on the console. 3:04 a.m., same as it had been the last time I'd looked. I told myself I just hadn't checked in a while. "You said they're closer," I pressed. "How do you know if you didn't see them move?" He let out a sound that wasn't quite a laugh. "You don't have to see fire to know it's getting hotter." Before I could respond, the line hissed, static rushing in like someone had pressed an old radio to the mic. It wasn't the clean static of a weak cell signal. It was dirty, layered, full of crackles and pops like distant voices trying to cut through. I leaned back from the console instinctively, pulling the headset slightly away from my ear. "You're breaking up. Can you move to a different spot?" "No," he said immediately. "Too quick." "Why not?" "They're in every doorway." The static deepened, crawling over his words. Through it, I thought I heard something, a low murmur too soft to catch. I turned the gain up on my side, even though it risked blasting my ears if the line cleared suddenly. "Sir, I need you to describe exactly what you see." There was a long pause. Then, so quiet I almost missed it, he said, "They're leaning in." A metallic clink echoed faintly through the call, like something small had dropped to the floor on his end. My brain went into auto mode, cataloging sounds, trying to piece the scene together. But the picture that formed didn't make sense. "They don't have faces," he continued. His voice was breaking now. "No arms, no legs, just shape, like someone cut people out of paper and stood them up." "You said they're in every doorway?" I asked, more to keep him talking than because I needed the answer. "Yes." A whisper. "They're not letting me out." I glanced around the dispatch floor. It was just me tonight. A skeleton crew. The others were in the back room, working through a minor highway pileup on the other side of the county. My supervisor had stepped outside for a smoke. No one was close enough to notice how I kept looking over my own shoulder. "Sir, listen to me," I said. "Help is on the way. I just need you to stay calm, stay in one spot, and—" A sudden crack cut through the headset, sharp and painful. I yanked it slightly off my ear. The sound wasn't static. It was closer to breaking wood. "You still with me?" I asked, pressing the mic button. "They're closer," he said. "I can hear them now." The hairs on my arms lifted. "What do they sound like?" He breathed out slow, like he was trying to keep from making any noise at all. "Like fabric rubbing together. Like coats. Long coats." I squeezed my eyes shut for half a second, then opened them again, grounding myself on the glow of the monitors in front of me. "Do you have any weapons in the house? Anything you can defend yourself with?" Static flared. It filled the channel until his voice was almost swallowed in it. "They don't need to touch me," he said, barely audible. "They just need me to be still." Something about that twisted my stomach. "What happens if you don't stay still?" "They notice," he whispered. The static cracked again, louder this time, and for a split second, I swore I heard something underneath it. Not him. Not background noise. A different voice, so faint I couldn't even tell if it was male or female, saying something I couldn't catch. My free hand tightened on the edge of the desk. "I'm sending units now." "There. They won't make it," he said. "The road's gone." I didn't even have time to question that before the line flared again, the static rushing in so hard it felt like the air between us was collapsing. And then, just like that, it cleared. For a moment, all I heard was the low hum of the generator again, steady and close. Then, faintly, like he was turning away from the phone, he said, "The lights are going out again." I leaned in. "You mean the generator's failing?" "No," he said. And then, after a pause, "They don't want light." There was a distant pop, like a bulb bursting. Another. His breathing quickened, each inhale shaking. "They're in the room," he said. Something thudded softly on his end of the line. Then another, like slow footsteps that weren't quite footsteps. My own reflection in the dark window glass seemed to waver. For the first time that night, I became aware of just how many shadows my own office had, thin strips under desks, long angles cast by filing cabinets, the darker shape just behind my own chair. "Listen to me," I said quickly, my voice tightening despite my best efforts. "Stay on the line. Keep talking. Don't let them." And then, nothing. Not a click, not a hang-up, just a soft, suffocating silence that made me think of being deep underwater. I tapped the console. "Sir, do you copy?" The silence stretched. My heart thudded in my ears. Then, through the emptiness, came that faint, awful sound he described earlier. Fabric shifting. Only this time, it was in my headset that I don't know if the hum of the generator was supposed to be comforting or not. At first, it was just this steady, low drone in my ears, like the sound of something mechanical working, doing its job. A promise that the dark wouldn't win tonight. But after the last few hours, that sound only reminded me how close we'd come to losing everything. And now it felt like the machine was straining. Like it knew something was wrong. The line had been open for 8 minutes. 8 minutes of his breathing. I tried everything. asking him questions, telling him to describe the shadows, telling him the deputies were almost there. But every time I try to pull him back, I get the same answer. The same hushed, fragile words. They're in the house. Not it. Not something. They. Plural. And each time he said it, it was quieter. Like the act of speaking gave them power. I could hear the generator in the background on his end too. A soft, jittering hum. It kept cutting for half a second every few minutes, like it was running out of breath. The lights in my own dispatch booth flickered with it, as if they were both plugged into the same dying heart. And then, without warning, he whispered something new. One of them is wearing my face. I froze. The way he said it, there wasn't panic in his voice. No screaming, no tears. Just this flat, helpless confusion, like he'd already lost the ability to fight, and now he was just reporting the facts. I didn't even realize I'd stopped breathing until my headset crackled and reminded me I was still holding the push-to-talk button. My throat felt dry when I finally spoke. What do you mean by that? Can you describe it? For a long time, I thought he wasn't going to answer. All I could hear was the low static hiss of the line and the faint, unnatural clicking sound in the distance on his end, like fingernails lightly tapping wood. Slow, rhythmic. When he finally spoke again, it was like his voice came from the bottom of a well. It's me, but wrong. He paused, and his breathing trembled just enough to make my skin crawl. It's smiling too wide, and it keeps trying my words. I looked up at the glass wall of the dispatch office. My own reflection stared back at me in the dark pane. Pale, hollow-eyed, mouth slightly open. And for a second, just a split second, it looked like my reflection's mouth twitched upward before I did. I told myself it was just the flicker of the light. But I turned back to my monitor anyway. Listen to me, I said, and I hated how thin my own voice sounded. You need to find somewhere safe, somewhere you can lock the door. Don't look at it. Don't let it. The lights went out, both in the booth and from the sudden silence in his house too. The generator had died. It was impossible not to notice the change. Without that low hum, the room felt hollow, stripped bare. I could hear my own pulse in my ears. And in that silence, the static on the line surged, rushing into every empty space like water filling a sinking boat. Can you still hear me? I said into the dark. No answer. Sir, are you there? The static swelled, loud enough to hurt. But underneath it, I thought I heard something else. The faint scrape of movement, the shuffle of feet across hardwood. And then low, right against the mic, so close I could almost feel the breath, he whispered, "It's the last light." What? I asked. But before I could get another word out, there was a sound that didn't belong. A high, dry, cracking noise, like a smile stretching skin that had never been meant to stretch. And then a second voice joined the line. It was his voice. Perfectly. Help me, it said. But there was something wrong with the rhythm, the way the words fell. Too even, too rehearsed, like someone had heard him speak once and was still learning the music. Sir, are you? The line cut. No click, no fade. Just nothing. The sudden dead air was worse than any static. I pulled the headset off, checked the connection, switched channels. Nothing. The call was gone. I sat there in the blackness, listening to my own breathing, trying to decide if I'd imagined the echo of that fake voice still hanging in the room. And then the emergency lights kicked in. Dim, red, and useless. It was just enough to catch my reflection in the glass again. And this time, it didn't just twitch. It smiled that I've worked night shifts at dispatch long enough to know the patterns. Most people think emergencies happen all the time after dark. Cars crashing, houses burning, people screaming into the phone. But the truth is there are long stretches of quiet. Dead air. An empty board glowing in front of you. You can go hours without hearing another human voice. And then, without warning, a voice cuts through it, like a pin through paper. That night, the quiet had been so deep I could hear the hum of the fluorescent lights overhead. I'd been half listening to a podcast in one ear, sipping burnt coffee that had gone cold, when the first ring came in. I slipped the headphones off and pressed the button. 911, what's your emergency? At first, nothing. Just a faint hiss of static. Then a woman's voice, soft but trembling, slipped through. Do you see her too? I froze. I've been asked strange things before, panicked, half-coherent things, but this one was so calm. Not a scream, not a demand. Just a question. "Ma'am, are you safe right now?" I asked. Her breath wavered in the line. "She's at the foot of my bed." The words made my stomach tighten. "Okay," I said slowly. "Who's at the foot of your bed?" "I don't know," she whispered. "She's just standing there. She's been there for hours." I tried to steady my voice. "Do you live alone?" "Yes." "Have you called the police?" "No," she said. "You're the first person I've spoken to. I just need to know if you can see her too." I looked instinctively at the monitors in front of me, though of course they showed nothing but maps and call logs. "Ma'am, I can't see your room," I said, "but I can send someone to help you." She didn't answer right away. When she did, her voice sounded further away. "She's not moving. Her head is tilted, like she's listening. Her hair is wet. It's dripping on my carpet." I wrote down her address with one hand, my pen scratching across the paper. "Can you describe her face?" There was a pause. I don't think she has one." Something about the way she said it, without panic, without exaggeration, made my skin prickle. "Okay, stay on the line with me," I told her. "I've got officers on the way." But then I noticed something. Her voice was shaking, but her breathing wasn't. No fast inhale, no rush of fear. It was almost like she was afraid of me hearing her panic, like she was trying to keep her terror muffled. "She keeps leaning closer," the woman said, her voice breaking slightly. "I think she wants me to get out of bed." "Don't move," I said quickly. "Stay exactly where you are until help arrives." "Do you see her yet?" she asked again. That question, it stuck in my head. She wasn't asking for confirmation that she wasn't crazy. She sounded like she already believed I could see what she saw if I just looked in the right place. Then, faintly, I heard it. Not from my headset, from her side of the call. A slow, wet drip, like water hitting carpet. I muted my mic for a second and waved to the nearest officer in the room, gesturing at my headset. She grabbed her notepad and started heading for the door to relay the address. "She's closer," the caller whispered suddenly, breaking the silence. "She's almost touching the blanket." "Keep your eyes on her," I said. "Don't let her out of your sight." "I'm not sure I want to," the woman said, her voice shaking now in a way that didn't sound forced. "If I close my eyes, she might get in." "And where?" I asked, but she didn't answer that. I kept my tone steady. "Ma'am, I need you to stay with me until officers get there. They're on their way right now." "She doesn't like that," the woman said, almost under her breath. "She's looking at me. I can't see her eyes, but she's looking at me." The way she described it made my throat tighten. I could hear faint movement, fabric shifting, like she was gripping her blanket tighter. "Where are you right now?" I asked. "In bed." "Is your bedroom door locked?" Another pause. "I don't have a door anymore." I blinked, trying to process that. "What do you mean you don't have a door?" "It was gone when I woke up," she said. "There's just the hallway now." "But it's not my hallway." My pen froze on the page. "Describe it," I said before I could stop myself. "It's too long," she whispered. "It bends. And it's dark, but not completely. There's light at the end, but it's moving, like it's breathing." I realized my grip on the phone was too tight. The other officer had left the room to dispatch units. It was just me and her voice in my ear. And then she said something that lodged itself in my brain and stayed there for the rest of the night. "I think she's from there." I tried to keep my tone even. "From the hallway?" "Yes. She's wet because it's raining there. I can't hear it behind her." I strained my ears, and I swear, just for a second, I did hear something faint under her words. Not static. Rain. "Ma'am, I need you to—" The line clicked faintly, but she was still there. "Do you really not see her?" she asked again. This time, her voice was heavier, like she was disappointed. "I can't see her," I said, "but I'm here with you." She let out a long, slow breath. And then, quietly, "She's leaning in. I think she's going to—" "Oh." Her voice just stopped. Not like the call cut out. She just stopped speaking mid-thought. I sat there, listening to the line. No breathing. No movement. And then a sound came through. Not from her. From someone else. A whisper, so faint I had to hold my breath to catch it. "Do you see her too?" My stomach dropped. It wasn't the same voice. It was deeper and closer to the mic. "Ma'am," I said, my own voice shaking now. Silence. I repeated her name twice. Nothing. The officers arrived at her address 13 minutes later. They found the apartment unlocked. Bedroom light on. No woman. No wet footprints. No sign anyone had been there at all. The only thing out of place was a wet patch of carpet at the foot of the bed. They tested it. It wasn't water. They didn't tell me what it was. I didn't expect to hear from her again. Not so soon, anyway. It was 2 nights after the first call. The one where she asked me if I could see the woman in her room. I'd replayed that conversation in my head more times than I'd like to admit, hearing the way her voice trembled when she described the figure at the foot of her bed. You work in dispatch long enough, and you get used to voices. You can tell the difference between someone who's joking, someone who's lying, and someone who's just lost in their own head. But hers was something else. Like she was teetering on a cliff's edge, and I couldn't tell if she was about to fall or if she already had. It was 2:14 a.m. when the line lit up. 911, what's your emergency? I said, my voice on autopilot. Silence. Just breathing. And then, she's moving. It was her. I knew immediately. The same calm, trembling voice. The same hollow space between her words. Like she was choosing them carefully while trying not to let something else slip out. I sat up a little straighter in my chair. Ma'am, is this the same situation as before? She hasn't moved for 2 nights, she whispered. Not once. Not even a blink. I thought maybe she was gone when I woke up, but I made the mistake of looking. What do you mean by? She's closer now. The way she said it, it didn't sound like a statement. It sounded like a confession. I looked around the empty room. My partner on the next console over was busy with another call, her face lit by the glow of her monitors. The rest of the floor was quiet, just the low hum of machines and the occasional crackle of the radio. How close? I asked. There was a pause on the line, like she was measuring the distance in her mind. If I stretched my legs out, she breathed, I could touch her. Something about the way she said touch made my skin crawl. Ma'am, do you know this person? She's not a person, she said flatly. She looks like one, but she's not. The air in the dispatch room felt heavier, like all the oxygen was slowly being drained out. What does she look like right now? I asked. She's still standing, still staring. But her head is tilted just a little, like she's trying to hear something. Or smell something. I swallowed hard. And you're in bed? Yes. And you haven't tried to leave? She told me not to. I froze. She spoke to you? No, not with words. Just, when someone tells you something without saying it. She let that hang in the air, and I realized I was gripping my pen so tightly my hand ached. Ma'am, I need you to listen to me, I said, keeping my voice calm. If you feel unsafe, you need to get out of that room. Her breath caught, like I just told her to jump into fire. I can't look away for too long, she said. Every time I do, she's closer. She's moving when I'm not watching. Something inside me twisted. I've handled calls where people swear something is stalking them, watching them from shadows, but there is always a break in their voice, panic, disbelief, something human. She didn't have that. She was too steady, too certain. Where are you right now in relation to her? I asked. Still in bed. She's by the footboard. And where's the nearest light source? It doesn't matter. She's wrong in the light. Worse, somehow. I wrote that down without thinking, though I didn't know why. Are you able to describe her again for me? She hesitated, then said, her eyes. They don't shine when the light hits them. They stay dark. Like the light doesn't touch her at all. There's something deeply, viscerally wrong about that. The human eye catches light. Always. Even in death. But she said it like it was a fact she'd seen over and over again for 2 nights. You said she never blinks, I said slowly. Yes. How long have you been watching her tonight? 3 hours. My throat went dry. 3 hours without a blink. Either she was wrong, or whatever she was looking at wasn't alive. Is she breathing? I asked. She went quiet for so long I thought I'd lost her. I can't tell, she finally whispered. Her chest doesn't move. But I feel her breath. On my legs. Cold. A shiver worked its way up my spine. Ma'am, I'm going to send an officer to check on you, I said, glancing toward my supervisor's desk. No, she said sharp now. No one else should see her. That stopped me cold. Why not? They'll notice her. And once you notice her, she notices you. I didn't know what to say to that. My training told me to keep her talking, to gather details, to keep her focused on me until help arrived. But the way she spoke made me feel like help was the wrong thing to send. Can you tell me your address again? I asked carefully. She did. Same as before. I motioned for my supervisor to get someone on scene, mouthing possible intruder without explaining further. Back on the line, I said, "Okay, I'm staying with you until help arrives. Just keep your eyes on her, all right?" "I'm trying," she whispered. "What's she doing now?" "She's leaning forward. Just a little. I think." She stopped. I heard a soft, wet sound over the line, like fabric sliding against itself. "Ma'am." She's smiling now. My mouth went dry. Smiling how? Like she knows something I don't. Her breathing quickened. Oh God, The line went dead. I stared at the phone for a full 5 seconds before snapping out of it and checking the call log. It was her number, the same one from before. The officers I sent got there 6 minutes later. They found the front door unlocked, lights off, and no one inside. No sign of struggle. Bed neatly made. No sign anyone had been there at all. But that night, around 3 a.m., the line lit up again. Same number. When I answered, there was nothing but breathing. Slow, deliberate. I almost hung up. But then, a voice, soft, almost playful. "Do you see her too?" I've been on a night shift long enough to know the sound of someone's breathing. You start to notice the little things, whether it's shallow or deep, controlled or panicked. Whether they're leaning close to the phone or speaking from across the room. And that night, I knew right away something was wrong. The woman from earlier, Janice, had called back. Her voice was tight, clipped, like she was forcing herself not to cry. I'd already spent part of my shift with her, listening as she described the figure in her yard. The one that never blinked. The one that leaned closer every time she looked away. I thought she might have been imagining it. Or maybe she was dealing with some creep who knew how to stand very, very still. Either way, she'd gone quiet after the last call ended, and I'd hoped she'd gone inside, locked her doors, and turned on every light in the house. But now she was back on the line. I pressed the receiver tight against my ear. "Janice? Are you safe?" She didn't answer right away. Just a soft inhale, shaky, like she'd been holding her breath before speaking. Then, "She's still there." It was barely above a whisper. My stomach nodded. "Okay, are you inside your house now?" "Yes," she said, and I could hear the faintest creak of floorboards under her weight. "I'm in the kitchen. I locked the back door. I'm not looking out the window anymore." "I can't." "That's fine," I told her, trying to keep my own voice calm. "Don't look if it's making you panic. Officers are." That's when I heard it. Breathing. But it wasn't hers. Hers was fast, uneven. Whoever else was on the line, their breath was slower. Steadier. Close. Too close. It didn't even sound like it was coming through her phone. It sounded like it was right next to me. I sat up straighter, pressing the earpiece harder into my head. "Janice, is someone there with you?" "No," she said quickly. Too quickly. "No one's here." Another inhale. Not hers. Long, dragging. The kind of breath that fills a room in a way you can feel. I muted my headset for a second and glanced around the dispatch floor, half expecting to see someone behind me as a bad joke. But every other dispatcher was hunched over their own calls, faces pale in the glow of their monitors. No one was standing anywhere near my desk. I unmuted. "Janice, I hear breathing. It's not yours. Are you sure no one else is inside?" She went quiet for a long time. I could hear the faint ticking of a clock on her end, the gentle hum of her refrigerator. Then, in a voice so thin it barely existed, "That's her." My throat went dry. "What do you mean?" I asked. She was whispering now, words trembling. I can hear her too. But she's not me, and she's not outside anymore. The slow breathing filled the line again. And then, faint, but there, something like the wet sound of lips parting. I clenched the receiver so hard my knuckles ached. "Janice, I need you to leave the house right now. Go somewhere with people. Go to a neighbor's. I'll stay with you on the line." "No," she said immediately, voice shaking. "If I move, she moves. That's when she gets closer." "Closer from where?" I asked, trying to keep my voice from rising. "From the corner of my eye." I didn't understand at first. "What?" "You don't see her straight on," Janice said. "Not unless you catch her mid-step. She's always there, between the blinks. You look straight at her, she's far away. You look away, just for a moment, and when you look back, her breath caught, like she was choking on her own words. She's right there. Closer. Always closer. I could feel my pulse in my ears. I wanted to tell her it sounded like a panic-induced hallucination, but that slow, steady breathing on the line wouldn't let me say it. It was too real, too present. Janice, I'm going to stay with you until the officers get there, I said. Can you tell me where you are in the kitchen? I'm by the counter. My back's to the fridge. There's nowhere else to stand without facing a window. The breathing grew louder in my headset. Not hers. Not mine. I swear, on my life, it sounded like it was leaning toward the receiver. I kept my voice steady. Okay, stay facing forward. Don't look at her if you don't want to. Just keep talking to me. Can you do that? Yes, she said, but it came out shaky. We stayed like that for maybe 30 seconds. And then I heard something I wish I could forget. Underneath the breathing, there was a sound like skin dragging across a floor. Not a shuffle, not a stomp. Just slow friction like something moving inch by inch toward her. She's moving, Janice whispered. My chest tightened. Don't look, Janice. Just keep your eyes forward. But she didn't answer me this time. There was just a sharp inhale, and then nothing. Janice? Are you there? I heard it then. A faint tap, like knuckles brushing against glass. Once. Twice. Janice! The line filled with the sound of her moving fast, maybe running, her breath coming in ragged bursts. She's inside. And then, clear as day, right in my ear, a third set of footsteps. Not hers, and not human. They were uneven, deliberate, like something trying to mimic walking, but not quite getting it right. The call didn't drop. She didn't hang up. She just stopped talking. Janice, I said again, my voice low, urgent. Say something. The breathing was all I could hear. Closer now. Heavy. It filled the line until I thought it would drown out my own thoughts. And then, she's behind you. The voice wasn't Janice's. That I remember the sound before I remember the words. It wasn't a scream or a crash. It was just silence folding in on itself. The kind of silence where your brain leans forward, waiting for something to fill it. When the line first went dead quiet, I thought maybe the call had dropped. My eyes went to the flashing green light on the console, still connected, still open. I spoke into the headset. Ma'am, are you still there? No answer. I felt my pulse in my fingertips as I tapped the console. The line was active. I could hear the faint static of an open call, the hum of some air vent, but no movement. It had been only seconds before she stopped talking to me. Seconds. She was mid-sentence, telling me she could still see it in the hallway, that it hadn't moved. And then she lowered her voice. Not to me. To it. It was subtle at first, the shift in her tone. She'd been whispering already, but the direction changed. I could hear it in the way her breath moved away from the mic, the way she angled her words like someone bending their head toward a person standing too close. And then she started saying things I couldn't quite catch. Small, broken fragments. Almost tender. Not begging. Not afraid in the way she had been before. Like she was talking to a child. Or something pretending to be one. I kept asking her to repeat herself, to speak to me, but it was like I didn't exist anymore. I could hear her, but she wasn't with me. And somewhere in between those soft, little words, another sound breathed in. I'd already heard it once in this case, the other breathing. The one she swore wasn't hers. It was back. Slow, damp breaths, too close to the mic, right in my ear. The kind of sound that makes you instinctively pull away, but I couldn't. The headset was clamped to my skull. I swallowed, forced myself to stay steady. Ma'am, I need you to answer me now. The air between us seemed to thicken. I thought I heard her smile. You can hear that in someone's voice, you know? That tiny lift in the exhale. She said something, finally clear enough to catch. Don't look away. Her voice was wrong. Not broken, not trembling like before. Calm. Flat. Like she'd accepted something. Don't look away from what? I asked. She didn't answer me. Another breath came through the line, but this one wasn't drawn in. It was blown out, slow, warm, deliberate, as if it knew exactly how it sounded to me. My nails dug into the edge of the desk. I glanced at the clock above the door. Less than 2 minutes had passed since she'd shifted to whispering to it. It felt like much longer. I heard her again. It doesn't like that. My stomach tightened. What doesn't like what? She spoke like she was explaining something simple to a child. When you blink, you shouldn't blink. It moves then. Her voice drifted away again, as though her head was turning toward the figure. It's closer now, she whispered. Then she giggled. Not loud, not manic, just this small, breathy sound, like she'd just been told a secret that was both funny and terrifying. I knew that sound. I'd heard it before, from people on the edge of panic, when they've gone past the point of coherent fear. When something inside them finally snaps to keep from breaking entirely. Ma'am, I said, keeping my voice steady even though my chest felt tight, I need you to stay with me. I'm sending help, but I need you to talk to me, not to. The other breathing cut me off. It was louder now, heavier, like it had moved closer to her phone. And in between those slow, humid exhales, I thought I heard the faintest scrape, like bare feet shifting on a hard floor. Her voice came back, barely audible. It wants to know your name. I froze. My own breath hitched before I caught it. You don't need to tell it anything. Do you understand? Don't tell it anything. Silence. Then, faintly, I think it already knows. I swear my hand went cold holding the pen I'd been using to take notes. I didn't remember picking it up again, but there I was, digging the tip into the pad hard enough to tear the paper. The line went so quiet that I almost missed the next sound. A small, wet pop, like lips parting after being pressed together too long. Her voice was closer now, sharper in my ear. It's right in front of me. I didn't realize I was leaning forward until my forehead nearly touched the console. Listen to me. Don't look away from it. Keep your eyes on it until help gets there. Can you do that? She didn't answer right away. I thought maybe she'd gone still. And then, I'm not sure I can. The way she said it made my skin prickle. There was no desperation in it. No plea. Just a quiet, resigned truth. Something in me broke protocol. Where exactly are you in the house? I asked, even though I'd already logged her address. I just needed to hear her place herself in reality. Needed her to remember she was in a home with walls, doors, things that were real. But her answer didn't help. It's not my house anymore. The words sat there between us. A floorboard creaked in the background. Then two more, slow, deliberate. Ma'am, it's leaning, she said suddenly, her breath coming quicker. It's leaning down to my face. Her words dissolved into something soft, almost like a sigh. I wanted to scream at her to keep talking, to not let that silence take her again, but I knew my voice would only fade against whatever was right there with her. Another breath, another scrape. Then she whispered, so close to the mic I could feel the hair on my arms rise. Don't look away. I didn't know if she was telling me or it. And then nothing. Not a click, not a drop. Just absence. The kind that makes you doubt there was ever a voice there to begin with. I called her name twice. No answer. I called a third time. The open line timer kept climbing. Dispatchers don't panic. We can't. But my throat was closing in on itself. My hand hovered over the console's emergency ping again, even though the first units were already en route. I just needed some proof she was still on the other side. All I got was a final sound, so faint I almost thought I imagined it. A blink. Yes, you can hear a blink if you're close enough. The quick, wet flick of eyelids, the faintest rustle of lashes against skin. And then the line went completely dead. You learn, after enough years in dispatch, that silence can be louder than screaming. It's the space between words that tells you how bad things really are. Some call starting chaos, yelling, running, someone breathing so fast you can hear the spit catching in their throat. Others start with nothing, just a static hum, the faint hiss of an open line. Those are the ones that sink into you. That night was quiet in the room. Too quiet. I remember watching the green clock above my console change from 1:12 a.m. to 1:13. The overhead lights had that sick, humming flicker again, and the smell of burnt coffee drifted from the corner table where someone had forgotten to dump the pot. Most of the others were on break. Just me, a half-warm burrito on my desk, and the muted sound of rain tapping the window. Then the line lit up. I put the headset on and said the same thing I've said tens of thousands of times. 911, what's your emergency? And someone answered. But it wasn't just someone. It was me. Not someone who sounded like me. Not a similar tone or the same pitch. It was my voice, my cadence, my pauses, my breathing, and it said, "Help me." I froze. The cursor on my monitor blinked in sync with my own breath, like the world had decided to match itself to me just to make the moment worse. I tried to keep my voice steady. "Sir or ma'am, can you?" "It's me." Same voice. Same everything. "It's me, I'm the real one. You have to listen to me." There's a thing that happens when something doesn't fit reality. Your brain tries to smooth it over, to shove it into a category it understands. Maybe it's a prank. Maybe it's a recording. Maybe someone from the office is messing with you. That's what I wanted to believe. But then it breathed, not just in my ear. I felt it in my chest, like hearing your own voice played back through your ribcage. "What's your location?" I asked because that's protocol, because my brain had nothing else. A pause. Then, "I'm where you are, where we are. But it's wrong here. Wrong." That word hit harder than the rest. "Sir, if you need help, I need your address." Silence again. Then my own voice, breaking in the same spot mine does when I'm exhausted. "Don't let them hang up. If they hang up, you'll take my place." I pressed mute for a second and just sat there, staring at the rain. My pulse was in my ears, my own reflection staring back from the dark monitor frame. I unmuted. "What do you mean by take your place?" But they didn't answer. Instead, I heard shuffling, a chair moving, a click like someone tapping the console keys. And then my voice, low, panicked, talking to someone else. "No, I'm not looking away. I told you I'm not." The words blurred, became muffled. My brain registered them as a conversation I wasn't part of, even though it was still my voice saying them. I checked the caller ID, blocked. Of course it was blocked. Something in the background scraped across my headset, like metal dragged slow over tile. My skin went tight. "Listen to me," I said. "Stay on the line. Tell me what's happening." The breathing picked up. Short, sharp pulls of air. Then, "You're not supposed to be here." I was supposed to be here. They made a mistake. "They?" I asked, but the line hissed, my own breathing filling the gap. I started typing notes into the log. Possible impersonation. Possible prank. Subject distressed. But I didn't believe it was a prank anymore. There was no distortion, no recording hiss, no telltale click of playback. This was live. I could hear their heartbeat, and it was beating exactly with mine. I don't know how long I sat there, headset burning against my ear, trying to keep them talking. But the longer it went, the more my surroundings started to feel thin, like the air between me and the walls had stretched too far. "Do you see anyone around you?" I asked. "Yes," they said instantly. "Who?" "You know who." "No, I don't." "Tell me. You're looking at them right now." I spun in my chair. The room was empty. The rain had stopped without me noticing. The green clock now said 1:13 again. I stared at it, waiting for it to change. It didn't. "You need to hang up," they whispered. "Please. If you hang up, you might still get out." I wanted to hang up. God, I wanted to. But I couldn't. It felt like if I did, I'd hear the phone ring again instantly, and this time I'd be the one on the other side, begging myself to listen. The voice softened. "They're almost here." "Who?" I asked, my throat tight. "You'll know when they answer instead of you." There was movement on the line. My voice again, speaking faster, almost in a sob. "Don't pick up next time. Don't. Don't let them find you." The sound cut. Just a dead hum. No click of disconnection, no static pop. The call was still active, but there was nothing. I stayed on for a full 3 minutes, whispering hello into the void, my own reflection staring back at me from the dead monitor. Then, from the headset, I heard the exact same words I'd said when I'd answered the call. My own voice. 911. "What's your emergency?" I didn't say anything, but whoever or whatever was on the other side started talking to someone. And it sounded terrified that I didn't sleep that morning. I didn't even try. I went home after my shift and just sat on the edge of my bed, my work shirt still on, my hands still smelling faintly of that mix of phone plastic and stale coffee that clings to dispatchers. I kept hearing my own voice in my head, my real voice, pleading through the headset, "You're not me." It hadn't been a prank. I knew prank calls. I'd gotten hundreds over the years. They were annoying, dumb, sometimes cruel, but they were always external. A stranger on the other end. This was different. This was me. The thing is, I could remember speaking those words. That's the part one haven't told anyone, not my supervisor, not even myself when I was trying to rationalize it at 3 in the morning. It felt like a memory, not just hearing it, but saying it. The exact strain in my voice, the panic, the way my throat tightened when I begged for help. I could feel that it had been mine, but I never said it. I stayed home the next day, which was unusual for me. I'm not the type to take sick leave unless I'm actually sick. But I couldn't bring myself to sit in that same chair, put on that same headset, and risk hearing her. Or me. By the third day, I told myself I was being ridiculous. Work doesn't pause for personal paranoia. The station smelled the same as always when I walked in, like warm electronics, dust, and burnt coffee from a pot that had been sitting too long. The chatter from the other operators buzzed low, voices blending into a constant background hum. I kept my head down, slid into my chair, and told myself to focus on the routine. For a while it worked. Calls came in, drunk and disorderly. A fender bender. A report of suspicious activity that turned out to be a raccoon in someone's trash. My breathing eased, my heart slowed. Maybe I'd imagined the whole thing. Maybe I'd been overworked and half dreaming at my desk that night. But at 1:37 p.m., the switchboard lit up with a number I didn't recognize. It was local, but there was no caller ID. Just blank. I answered the same way I always did. 911. What's your emergency? And then, please. The voice wasn't panicked this time. It was quiet, shaky. And it was me. I froze. Every hair on my arms lifted. I don't have much time, the voice said. They're close. Who's close? I asked, my throat going dry. I don't know what it is, my voice whispered back. But it's wearing you. It's wearing you, and no one can tell. I wanted to hang up. I wanted to throw the headset onto the desk and walk out. But my fingers were locked around it. Listen to me, the voice went on. Your co-workers, what do they see when they look at you? I turned to my chair. 4 other dispatchers sat at their own stations. Melissa caught my eye for half a second and gave me a polite, distracted smile before going back to her call. Nothing unusual. They see me? I said. No, my voice said, almost desperate. They see it. I swallowed hard. What is it? There was silence on the line. But it wasn't dead air, it was breathing. My breathing. Not through the headset, but in my own ears, like I was hearing myself from both inside and outside my head. Hello, I said. The voice came back, but lower, heavier. I can't hold this line much longer. It's listening now. I pushed my chair back, the legs screeching against the floor. Melissa glanced over again, this time with a frown. Where are you? I asked the voice. If you're me, where are you? In the dark, it said, almost too quietly to hear. They keep me where you can't look. And then, click, the line died. I sat there for a long time, the empty dial tone humming faintly in my ear. When I finally pulled the headset off, I realized my palms were wet. I didn't say anything to anyone. Not Melissa, not the shift supervisor. How could I? How do you tell your boss that you just had a conversation with yourself from somewhere else? The rest of the shift passed in a blur. I went through the motions, answered the calls, gave the reports. But every time the phone rang, I tensed, waiting for that voice. Waiting for me. That night, I locked my door. Not just the knob, deadbolt, chain, even a chair propped under the handle like something out of an old movie. It didn't help. At 3:14 a.m., my phone rang. My personal phone. The number was my own. I didn't want to answer. God, I didn't. But I did. Hello. Static. And then, you're still there. My voice. I sat up in bed, the sheet twisting around my legs. Who is this? You haven't noticed yet, have you? It said. Noticed what? That you're not blinking. I opened my mouth to argue, but my throat locked. I was staring into the dark of my bedroom, and the words hit me in a way that felt physical. My eyes burned. My vision trembled at the edges. But I realized I couldn't remember the last time I blinked. I shut my eyes hard, forcing them closed, feeling the relief of darkness. But when I opened them again, I could still feel something watching from behind them. It's wearing you, the voice whispered. And every time you blink, it gets better at pretending. I hung up, threw the phone across the room. I didn't sleep again. The next day at work, I started paying attention. Not to the calls, not to the paperwork, but to my co-workers' faces when I spoke. Melissa looked at me the same as always. But Mark, the guy across from me, kept glancing up. Not suspicious exactly, but puzzled. Like I just said something that didn't make sense. Later, in the break room, he told me, "Hey, you feeling okay?" I lied. Said I was fine. He hesitated. "It's just, I could have sworn you called my name earlier, but you didn't sound like yourself." I left without answering. I've started checking the mirrors more often now. Not for vanity, just to confirm. But I think it's learning how to smile like me that I didn't even notice the hum of the room anymore. That low, steady vibration from the servers, the soft crackle of the headsets, the faint buzz of fluorescent lights overhead, it all melted into background noise after years at the console. But that night, I heard everything. Every faint sound. Every wrong one. I've been on the line for nearly 20 minutes with a man who called himself Robert Lane. He spoke like someone trying to be calm, but barely holding the edges together. His breathing kept hitching, and I could hear something faint in the background, almost like shuffling. He swore he wasn't alone in his house. Said someone had been standing in his hallway for the last hour, just staring. Didn't move when he yelled. Didn't run when he threatened to call the police. Just stood there, head tilted like they were studying him. I stayed on with him, reassuring him the police were on their way, telling him not to engage, not to get too close. But at some point, the line crackled. Not a normal static. It had weight to it, like the sound of fabric stretching. And underneath it, a faint voice. Not his, not mine. Just a whisper, too soft to catch, until Robert suddenly stopped mid-sentence and said, "Who was that?" I told him it must have been background noise on my end, but the truth is, I didn't think it was. My mouth went dry. We stayed on the line until the officers arrived. I heard them knock, heard him answer. Then silence. No voices. No muffled conversation. Nothing. I stayed on the headset, frowning, until one of the officers came on. His tone was casual, but I caught the hesitation. "Dispatch, house is empty. No sign of anyone inside." That wasn't possible. I'd just been talking to him. When my shift ended, I couldn't shake it. I stayed back, scrolling through the call log, pulling the audio file. And that's when I saw it. The timestamp didn't match the actual call duration. My system said I'd been talking to Robert Lane for 0 minutes. 0. It wasn't a glitch. The system had logged the call. But under console location, it said console 2. I was at console 5. My stomach tightened. The night supervisor was still in the back office, sipping burnt coffee and scrolling through some report. I asked her if the security feed for the call floor was still running from earlier. She gave me a look like I just asked if the sky was blue, then pulled it up on the monitor. The footage flickered, then sharpened. The call floor was empty except for me. Except it wasn't, because in the playback, there was someone else. Sitting at console 5, I leaned in, telling myself maybe it was just me from a weird angle. But the more I looked, the less it felt like me. Their posture was wrong. Too straight. Hands resting perfectly still on the console, even when I knew. I'd been typing, shifting, glancing at my notes. The timestamp on the footage matched exactly with my call to Robert Lane. And in the footage, my headset wasn't even on my head. It was lying on the desk. I froze. I remember speaking into that headset. I remember holding it, feeling the faint pressure of the mic wire against my cheek. But in the video, the other me just sat there, still, watching the monitors without blinking. I felt this sudden, heavy pull in my chest, like I was looking at something I shouldn't. The shape in the chair didn't move, didn't breathe, at least not in any way I could see. It was me, but not me. I asked my supervisor if she saw it. She leaned forward, squinting at the monitor. And then she laughed. Said, "That's just you, kid. Bad camera angle. Lighting makes you look off, but that's all." I want to tell her about the headset, about the posture, about the fact that I knew I wasn't still when I took that call. But her tone was final. She didn't care. That night, I didn't sleep. I kept picturing the figure in my chair. Still, watching the monitors, wearing my shape like it had been doing it for years. The next evening, before my shift, I went straight to console 5. Everything was exactly how I'd left it. Headset in the same place. The faint smell of my hand sanitizer still lingering. But when I sat down, I felt wrong. Like the chair remembered something I didn't. The shift went on as usual until about 1:30 a.m., when a call came in routed to console 3. I shouldn't have been able to hear it, But I did. A faint crossfeed in my headset. I froze when I heard my own voice. Not a recording. Not an echo. Me. The me on the other line was calm, speaking to a caller about a break-in. They asked all the right questions, gave all the right reassurances. But every so often, they would pause, like they were listening to something else in the room with them. I checked the display. The console ID wasn't mine. Still, I could hear everything. And then, they said my name. Not my last name. My first. Like they were addressing me directly. I didn't answer. Didn't move. And in the silence that followed, I heard that same stretching sound from Robert Lane's call. The same faint whisper beneath it, too soft to make out. The voice on the other end chuckled, soft, but not warm. Then said, "This is where you sit." The call cut out. I don't remember the rest of that shift. Just flashes, my hands trembling over the keyboard, my gaze darting up at the security camera like it might catch me doing something I wasn't aware of. When my break came, I went back to the footage again. My supervisor wasn't there this time. I pulled it up myself. The video from that moment was worse, because when the call was happening, the me in the footage wasn't sitting at my console anymore. I was standing directly under the security camera, head tilted up, face lost in shadow. The real me, if that's what I was, had been sitting in the chair, frozen, headset on. But the other one had been looking right into the lens. Even though I couldn't see the eyes, I swear it was looking at me. I slammed the window shut and yanked my headset off. From then on, I couldn't tell if the console was mine. Not really. Some nights I'd sit there, and the keys would feel different under my fingers. The headset cord would seem shorter. The monitor height would feel slightly wrong. And sometimes, just sometimes, I'd catch myself on the edge of a thought that wasn't mine. A memory of something I'd never done. A name I didn't know. A place I'd never been but could picture perfectly. I stopped watching the security feeds after that, because I think I already know what I'd see. I've never liked the silence after a call ends. The moment where the headset is still warm against your ear, but the voice is gone. It's like a ghost has just left the room. Usually, I can shake it off. Usually, I can tell myself it was just another job, another call, another voice I'll never hear again. But now I'm not sure whose voice will be gone when this one ends. It started the second I picked up. No static, no ringing, just a voice. Low, calm, and mine. Not just similar, not just close. Exactly my voice. Only one of us will still exist when the call ends, it said. I laughed at first, not out loud, but in my head, because it sounded ridiculous. Like something from one of those prank calls we get from kids who've been watching too many horror movies. But the longer I listened, the colder I got. The voice didn't break character. It didn't waver. It spoke exactly like I do, even with that tiny rasp I get when I've been talking too much in one shift. "You don't believe me," it said. "You think you're safe because you're the one holding the line. But this isn't your line. Not anymore." I checked the display. The call wasn't showing a number. Just blank space. Not even unknown. Just nothing. "Who is this?" I asked. But hearing myself ask it made something tighten in my chest. It was like talking into a mirror that talks back, but doesn't blink. The other me chuckled, and it sounded exactly like the chuckle I'd make if I thought someone was wasting my time, but I still wanted to sound polite. "I am you," it said. "I've been here longer than you think." There was this moment, maybe 2 seconds, where I forgot to breathe. I've taken some bad calls, screaming, gunshots, someone drowning while I try to keep them talking, but this was worse. Not because it was louder, but because it was too quiet. I pushed the mute button just to think for a second, but the voice kept talking in my ear. "You can't mute me. I'm not on your console. Look up." I didn't want to. God, I didn't want to, but I did. The glass window in front of my station showed the reflection of the consoles in the row behind me. And there I was, sitting at the far end, headset on, mouth moving. I whipped around in my chair, but the seat was empty. I turned back to the glass. Still there. Still moving its mouth in sync with the words in my ear. "Only one of us can stay," it said. "And when the call ends, the one who doesn't belong will be gone. You know how this works." I didn't. I swear I didn't. But somewhere deep inside me, a part of me felt like I did. Like I'd known this was coming for a long time. I tried to hang up. The end call button didn't respond. I pressed it over and over until my finger hurt. Nothing. You can try, the voice said, but you don't know which one ends a call. Do you? Your console? Mine? Maybe neither. Maybe it's your voice that has to stop. Or mine. I realized something, then something that made my skin prickle. If there was another me, maybe it had a console too. Maybe it could hear this same conversation. Maybe it was deciding right now whether to hang up on me. The voice sighed. You're stalling. That's what you always do. Always hoping someone else will make the decision for you. But I promise you, you don't want me to make it. I swallowed, trying to keep my breathing quiet. My hands felt like they didn't belong to me anymore. How do I know you're not the one who doesn't belong? I asked. You don't, it said instantly. And neither do I. But one of us is about to find out. I thought about standing up, going to the other end of the room, proving the other station was empty. But what if it wasn't? What if I saw myself sitting there? And what if I wasn't the one seeing? The voice started humming. Just a low, aimless hum. It was the exact same tune I hum when I'm alone in the break room, pouring coffee. I didn't even know I did it until I heard it. I pressed every button I could, transfer, hold, even trying to route the call to another dispatcher. But every time, the system just flickered and went back to the blank screen. Do you want to stay? The voice asked. The question hit me in a way I didn't expect. My first thought should have been of course. But for some reason, my mind went blank. What do you mean? I whispered. The voice chuckled. You're tired. You've been here too long. You've been living in this room, this chair, these calls. Maybe you don't want to be the one who stays. I felt something shift in the air, like the room itself was leaning in closer. And then, I heard typing. Not mine, not on my console, but in the headset. Fingers on keys, steady, deliberate. What are you doing? I asked. I'm logging off, it said. One of us has to. It's fairer if I choose. My pulse spiked. Stop. Don't. The typing stopped. Say it, the voice said. Say what? Say you want to stay. Say you want me gone. The thing was, the longer I sat there, the less I was sure I wanted to say it. It felt like if I said those words, I was agreeing to something bigger than just ending a call. Like I'd be choosing my own version of the truth. I kept thinking about the reflection. How in a glass, I was so still, so calm, while I sat here sweating, shaking, barely holding myself together. What if that calm me was the real one? What if I was the mistake? Tick-tock, the voice whispered. The call has to end sometime. And that's when I realized I could end it, but not by pressing a button, not by logging out. I could stop talking. If I stopped talking, maybe the voice would be the last one speaking, and maybe that would decide it. Or maybe it would be the other way around. Maybe the one who stopped speaking first would vanish. I stared at the dark console screen, my own pale reflection staring back. The voice went quiet too. I think it knew what I was thinking. For a long time, neither of us said anything. Just the hum of the air conditioning and the faint click of someone else's keyboard somewhere in the room. And then, softly, last chance. My throat felt like it was closing. My chest ached. I opened my mouth, and I said nothing. The silence stretched. It felt like the walls were pressing in, like the room was tilting, like the headset was tightening around my head. Then, a click. The line went dead. The chair in front of me, my chair, was emptied at IT was 2:53 a.m. when the first call came in. I remember staring at the clock on the wall, the second hand dragging across the face like it didn't want to get anywhere. The dispatch room was quiet, just the low hum of the computers and the faint whir of the ceiling fan. Nights like this usually stay dead until morning. Then the line lit up. My headset clicked. 911. What's your emergency? A man's voice came through, shaky, fast, tripping over itself. There's a fire. Oh God, there's a fire. The house. It's catching. Sir, I need you to slow down. What's your address? He rattled it off. Ridgeview Lane, number 1427, and I typed it into the system. My fingers felt cold, even though the room wasn't. How big is the fire? I asked. There's this sound behind him like wood snapping, but also muffled, like the sound was wrapped in something. It's in the living room. Oh God, it's coming down the hall. Sir, get out of the house immediately. I've dispatched the fire department. Stay on the line. But he cut off. Not like hanging up. Just stopped. The line stayed open. I could hear breathing. Slow. Even. Not the panicked, gasping breath from before. I said, sir, but nothing changed. After a few seconds, the line went dead on its own. I sat there for a moment longer, staring at the screen, at the address. The call was logged, and the units were already en route. I figured maybe he dropped the phone or passed out from smoke. At 3:08 a.m., the fire crew called back. There was no fire at 1427 Ridgeview Lane. There wasn't even a house there, just an empty lot. I told myself maybe the caller had been disoriented. People in crisis sometimes give wrong addresses. Still, something about that voice, how suddenly it went calm, stuck with me. I tried to shake it off. 15 minutes later, the phone rang again. Same line, same pattern. I put on my headset. 911, what's your emergency? A man's voice came through, shaky, fast, tripping over itself. There's a fire. Oh God, there's a fire in the house. It's catching. I froze. Not because it was similar, because it was exact. Same words, same pauses, same background crackle of snapping wood. Sir, what's your address? I asked, though I already knew. He rattled it off. 1427 Ridgeview Lane. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, but my stomach had already dropped. How big is the fire? Again, the same answer. It's in the living room. Oh God, it's coming down the hall. I waited for it. The cutoff. The sudden calm breathing. It came right on time. And then silence. I didn't log it this time. I didn't even send units. I just sat there, headset still on, feeling my skin tighten over my bones. It was impossible. It had to be a recording. But if it was, who was playing it? And why now? The room felt heavier. The air seemed thicker. Every small hum of the computers felt too loud. I looked at the wall clock. 3:07 a.m. The second hand moved once and then stopped. I stared. It didn't tick again. My monitor clock still read 3072. I tapped my keyboard. Nothing changed. Then the phone rang again. 911, what's your emergency? My voice felt too thin, too far away. There's a fire. Oh God, there's a fire. I slammed the mute button, but the voice kept going. I could still hear it. That's when I noticed the line wasn't even showing as active on the console. No incoming call. No outgoing. The voice was just there. I pulled the headset off. The voice was still in my ear. Not through the speakers, inside my head. I remember pushing away from the desk, my chair wheels squeaking against the floor. I backed up until I hit the wall, but it didn't stop the sound. It ran all the way through again, every word, every pause, until the calm breathing returned. And then it stopped. For maybe 5 seconds, the room was dead silent. Then the phone rang. This time, I didn't answer, but it still connected. Why aren't you helping me? The voice asked. Not panicked, not rushed, just steady. I swallowed. What do you want? The breathing slowed. You didn't send them. There's nothing there, I said. My voice cracked. A pause. Then you come. I hung up. I ripped the headset cord from the jack, but the phone rang again instantly. I didn't touch it. It picked up on its own. There's a fire. The voice began again. Same rhythm, same panic, but now there was something under it. Like a second voice whispering along with it. Almost in sync, but not quite. By the time it hit, it's in the living room. I could hear the whisper clearer. It wasn't repeating the same words. It was saying my name, over and over. The snap in the background didn't sound like wood anymore. It sounded like knuckles. I don't remember standing up, but I was suddenly at the door to the dispatch room. My hand was on the knob, ready to leave. The phone rang again. The sound made my whole body lock. The clock still said 3:07. I left the room, or at least I thought I did. But when I stepped into the hallway, it was the dispatch room again. Same desk, same chairs, same clock, same phone, ringing. My throat felt like it had closed up. I backed away, eyes darting to the far wall where the exit should have been. The phone stopped. And then, from behind me, the headset clicked. That soft little pop when someone's on the line. The voice was right behind my ear now. 15 minutes, it said. Then we try again. I didn't stand up right away. After the second fire call came in, the exact same words, same voice, same panic. It was like the room pressed in on me. Like the air itself was leaning closer. I kept my headset on for a while, just staring at the blinking lights on the console, wondering if maybe I'd somehow queued up a recording by mistake. But I hadn't touched anything except the answer button. And I'd answered it live. I knew I had. The clock on the wall read 3:22 a.m. when the first call came in. It read 3:37 a.m. when it came in again. That made sense. That's 15 minutes apart. But when I checked the desk clock, it was wrong. It still said 3:22. The little second hand was ticking, but the minute hand hadn't moved, like it was pretending to work. I told myself maybe it was just broken. Coincidence. Still, my gut told me I should step away from the console, clear my head, walk the floor. The dispatch floor was quiet. 3 other workstations, all empty, 2 of them with their screens black, one with a looping city map glowing pale blue. My shift partner, Dana, had called in sick. No one else was scheduled overnight. The hum of the fluorescent lights followed me as I crossed the floor. It was the kind of hum you stop noticing after an hour, until it suddenly feels too loud, like it's digging into your ears. I reached the far wall and pushed open the door to the hallway. It wasn't a long hallway, maybe 20 feet, ending in the glass double doors that led to the main lobby. From there, I could step outside for a minute, get some air. I started down the hall. The hum faded behind me. My shoes made this dull tapping sound on the tiles. Halfway down, I thought about texting Dana just to see if she'd answer, but my phone was in my locker. I reached the glass doors, pushed them open, and stepped into the dispatch control room. Not the lobby, not the hallway I just walked. The control room. The same chairs, the same screens, the same empty desks. For a second, my brain refused to connect the dots. I just stood there, holding the door, looking around, waiting for something to be different. Nothing was. I turned around. Behind me wasn't the hallway. It was just the far wall of the control room. I let go of the door. It closed with a soft click like it always did. I told myself, calmly, rationally, that I must have turned the wrong way. Somehow, even though I'd been walking straight. I walked across the room again, this time toward the side door near the equipment cabinet. That door led to the stairwell. 2 flights down, I could reach the break room. I opened it, stepped through, and walked into the control room again. Same angle this time. Same view of my own chair. A pressure started building behind my eyes. That feeling you get when you're about to remember something important, but it's stuck in the back of your head. I turned and opened the door again. Behind it, the far wall. I backed away from it, breathing harder now. It wasn't possible. Not unless I'd fallen asleep without realizing it. Maybe I was still at the console, dreaming. I walked to the opposite wall. There was a single maintenance door there, painted beige, with a little keyhole. I pulled my keyring from my pocket, slid the right key in, turned, and found myself looking at the control room again. Only this time, it fell off. The light was different, duller, like there was dust in the air, catching the glow from the monitors. The air even smelled different, faintly burned like the inside of an old toaster. I stepped inside. There was my chair, the blinking console, the wall clock, still stuck at 3:22. But the console wasn't making any sound. The usual low chatter from police channels was gone. Every light on the board was frozen mid-blink, like someone had hit pause. I moved toward it, my shoes sounding too loud on the floor. My own workstation felt abandoned. Not just empty, abandoned, like it had been left this way for a long time. I touched the desk. Cold. The headset cable hung limp over the side, the earpiece resting on the floor. When I picked it up, dust smeared on my fingers. I turned back to the door, and it wasn't there. The beige maintenance door was gone. There was only the far wall. I kept turning, where the glass hallway doors should have been. The wall again. For walls, no exits. The air seemed thicker now. My breath came out warmer. And then behind me, the console crackled. I froze. The headset in my hand hissed with static. Then a voice came through. The same voice from the fire call. Word for word. Hello. Please, there's a fire on Willow Creek Drive. You have to send someone. The smoke is... I yanked the headset off and dropped on the desk. The voice kept going, muffled but still loud. I can't see. My kids are inside. Please, please. It stopped. The clock still read 3:22. I don't remember how long I stood there, staring at it. Long enough for my legs to start shaking. I told myself I needed to move. Didn't matter where, just somewhere. I picked the farthest corner of the room and walked toward it, pressing my hand against the wall. It was solid, cold, painted cinder block. I followed it along the edge, counting my steps. One corner, then another, and I was back at my workstation. My chair was turned toward me now. I swear it hadn't been like that before. I didn't touch it. I didn't even look at it too long. I just kept moving, tracing the walls again, faster now. Each loop brought me right back to the chair. The third time around, the headset was gone. The console lights were all steady now. No blinking, no static. Just a solid glow. That's when I noticed the hum again. It wasn't the fluorescent hum anymore. It was deeper, slower, like a heavy machine buried under the floor. I crouched, pressed my hand to the tile. The vibration was there, steady, pulsing. Not mechanical, more like breathing. I stood and backed away, my heel hitting the leg of the chair. Something inside me broke then. I lunged for the console, grabbed the phone, and punched the line to the fire department. It rang, and then my own voice answered. It said my name, said it like a question, like it was checking if I was really me. I hung up so fast the phone slammed against the cradle. The hum grew louder. The lights dimmed, not all at once, but like a shadow passing over the room. I pressed my back to the wall, gripping my own arms to keep them from shaking. Somewhere in the room, I heard the chair creak that I don't know the exact moment I realized something was wrong. It wasn't sudden, like a loud bang or a scream. It was quiet, too quiet. I was halfway through my shift when it happened. One moment I was tapping at the console, sipping coffee gone lukewarm, and the next, I noticed the wall clock. 3:07 a.m. The second hand was stuck between the marks. Not moving, not even twitching. I thought it was just broken. That happens here sometimes. The station's old, and maintenance only comes when someone makes enough noise about it. But then my eyes fell on the little digital clock at my console. 3:07 a.m. No blinking colon, no shifting numbers. Just frozen. I checked my watch. 3:07 a.m. I even took out my phone. The screen said 3:07 a.m., but the battery percentage, that was still dropping. That's when my chest tightened. See, in dispatch, we rely on time. Calls are logged to the second. We know when they come in, when we send someone out, when backup arrives. If the clocks stop, everything stops. Or at least it should, because that's when the first call came in. The line crackled. That slow, grainy static like a tape recorder starting up. My headset hissed in my ear before the voice came through. It was a woman, panicked, gasping like she'd been running. I know this voice. I thought immediately. I know it. Dispatch, please, someone's in my house. Her words hit me like cold water. Not because of what she said, I've heard worse, but because I recognized it. It was a call from 3 years ago. Not just similar, the exact same. Same pitch in her voice, same sharp inhale before she spoke, same faint sound of a door creaking in the background. I remember this call because the woman didn't survive. She'd been stabbed in her kitchen while still on the line. The officers found her slumped against the fridge, phone in hand. Her blood had pooled under the tiles. I remember logging that call. I remember her name. I remember the exact way her voice broke on the word please. And now, she was calling me again. I just sat there listening. She repeated the same words, exactly as before, until the line went dead with the same click I'd heard back then. My skin was crawling. I checked the system. The call was logged, but the timestamp? 3:07 a.m. The phone rang again. This time it was a man. His tone was frantic, shaking. You gotta help me. They're in the walls. I froze. That was a call from last year. A farmer, way out past County Line Road. The sheriff's office found him alone in his house, shotgun empty, drywall shredded with deep claw marks. No sign of the thing he claimed was in there with him. They called it an animal attack. I didn't believe that then. Now I was hearing him again, word for word, with the same trembling voice and the same muffled thumps in the background. I didn't even speak this time. I just listened. It ended the same way, a sharp gasp, then silence. 3:07 a.m. I don't know how long I sat there before the third call came in. When I picked up, I nearly dropped the headset. It was my old partner, Grace. She was laughing. That easy, soft laugh she always had when she was trying to calm someone down. Except Grace has been dead for 2 years. I hadn't heard her voice since the accident. Control to Unit 5, she said, "You still with me?" I didn't answer. My throat was dry, and my hands felt numb. "Copy that," she said like she'd heard me. We've got movement on the west side. I'll check it out. Then static. When the line cleared, she was gone. The system logged the call. 3:07 a.m. I pushed back from the console. My chair squeaked too loud in the stillness. I looked around the room. The shadows in the corners seemed heavier, stretched out in unnatural ways. Every clock still read 3:07. It felt like the air was pressing in on me, thick and stale. My skin prickled like I'd stepped into a room where someone had just been talking about me. The calls kept coming. Voices I remembered. Voices I didn't want to remember. Voices of people who were already gone. A kid sobbing so hard I could barely make out the words. An old man breathing wet and slow, like his lungs were filling with water. A woman whispering my name over and over, but I swear I'd never heard her voice before in my life. Each one ended the same way. Silence. 3:07 a.m. I stopped answering. Just sat there, headset on the desk, listening to the ringing fill the room. But the calls, they didn't stop. The ringing came from everywhere now. The console, the backup line, even a little desk phone no one ever uses. And under it all, I swear I heard ticking. Not from the clocks. Those were dead. This was softer, closer, like it was coming from inside the walls. I stood up, my knees stiff, and walked to the far side of the room. The ticking followed, not echoing, following. It got louder near the old filing cabinet. I don't know why I did it, but I knelt down and pressed my ear to the metal. The sound was right there, behind it, steady and slow. Tick, tick, tick. I yanked the cabinet open. Files, papers, dust. No clock. But the ticking didn't stop. It was on the floor now. I backed away, my heel catching on the mat, nearly sending me to the ground. My chest was tight. My breathing came in short bursts. Then the console lit up again. Incoming call. No number. No source. I didn't want to answer. Every nerve in my body was telling me not to. But my hand moved anyway. I lifted the receiver, slow, and pressed it to my ear. No voice. Just breathing. Then, "You're late." It wasn't a voice I recognized. It was deep, smooth, and patient. The kind of voice that doesn't need to raise itself to be heard. Late for what? I whispered before I could stop myself. The line went dead. I put the receiver down. Checked the system. 3:07 a.m. I don't know how much longer I sat there. The calls blurred together. The voices began to overlap. Some sobbing, some screaming, some chanting things I couldn't understand. But one thing was the same every time. They all spoke as if it wasn't the first time they were talking to me. Like we'd already had the conversation. Like I was supposed to remember. I think I was hearing the same moment over and over. Not just stuck in time. Looping inside it. And if that's true, if I can't get out of 3:07 a.m., I'm going to keep hearing them forever. I don't know how long I've been sitting there when the call came through. It felt like I had already answered it before. Maybe in a dream, or in one of those moments where you're halfway awake and halfway asleep, and everything blurs together. The ringing wasn't even loud anymore. Just constant. A pulse more than a sound. I stared at the console. My headset felt heavier than usual, like it didn't want me to put it on. But the screen flashed in that same way it always does. A line coming in from nowhere. No ID. No origin. Just call in progress before I even touched it. I put the headset on. My throat was so dry it hurt to talk. 911, what's your... The voice cut through me before I could finish. When you hang up, it said, calm as a whisper in church, you'll start over. I froze. It wasn't the words that scared me. It was the fact that I already knew what they were going to say. Exactly how they'd sound. Like a recording, but wetter. Breathing too close to the mic. I swallowed. Who is this? They didn't answer right away. I could hear something on their end, like the hum of fluorescent lights. And underneath that, a faint ticking, except it wasn't steady. It would tick stop, then tick twice, too fast. Like it was trying to catch up. You think it's been hours? They said, but you've only been here for a minute. I pulled the mic away from my mouth. Looked at the wall clock. Still 3:07 a.m. It had been 3:07 for her. God, I don't know how long. The others had noticed earlier, but no one talked about it after a while. Because talking about it meant admitting it was happening. The voice on the line went on, steady and quiet. I'm in the room next to yours. You can't see me, but I can see you. I turned in my chair before I could stop myself. There was no window into the next room, just a wall with faded paint. But my brain swore there was movement there. A shadow where no light should have been. The call was still open. "What do you want?" I asked. They gave this small, dry laugh, like the sound of paper tearing. "I want you to stay on the line, because if you hang up, you'll start again. Same call, same night, same mistakes." I glanced at the call log. Nothing. No incoming record. No outgoing. Like it wasn't even real. But I could hear the breathing. I could hear them shift, like a chair squeaking. Then they said something that made my skin crawl. "You've already hung up once." It was such a simple sentence, but my chest went tight. "What do you mean? You don't remember, do you?" the voice asked. "That's the problem. You forget every time. You hang up, and you're right back at the start. You don't even know how many times you've done it." My headset suddenly felt too tight. I ripped it off, stared at it like it might start moving. But the ringing started again, and the screen said, "Call in progress." Not incoming, not missed, just in progress. I picked it up, even though my stomach was telling me not to. This time, they didn't let me speak at all. "Welcome back," they said. I swear I could hear the smile in their voice. I should have just pulled the plug on the console. But I didn't, because a part of me, God help me, wanted to know what they meant. "How many times?" I asked. "How many times have I done this?" The line was quiet for a moment. Then, more than I can count. And then I heard something new. Faint in the background, like a second line was open on their end. It was me, my voice, saying, "911, what's your emergency?" It was coming from them like they were playing back a call. But it wasn't an old recording. It was happening now. Like I was answering a call on their end at the same time they were talking to me. I pressed the headset harder to my ear. "What is this?" And then they switched. Their voice dropped to something slow, heavier, like each word had to be pulled out from somewhere deep. "You think you're the one answering," they said, "but you're the one calling." I felt my body go cold. They whispered, almost playful, "You've been trying to get through to yourself for a long time now, but you never stay on long enough to listen." I stood up, headset still on. Pacing like that would help me think. My reflection in the dark window looked wrong. I swear the mouth didn't move when I spoke. "Why me?" I asked. "Because you're still here," they said. The others hung up. I don't know why, but I suddenly thought of the empty desks in the dispatch room. The chairs that hadn't been touched in years. The ones we never talked about because we didn't want to remember who used to sit there. The ticking sound started again, faster now. "You're running out of time," they said. "But the clock," I started. "No, they cut me off. You're running out of you." The line crackled, and for a split second, I heard every voice I'd ever taken a call from. Every scream, every sob, every final word, layered on top of each other until it was just noise. I tore the headset off. My ears were ringing. The console was dark now. No flashing lights. No call in progress. I thought it was over until I heard my own voice behind me. "911, what's your emergency?" I turned, but the room was empty, except for the headset. Back on its hook. I don't remember picking it up again. I don't even remember sitting back down. But the voice was already there. "When you hang up," they whispered, "you'll start over." And I finally understood. It wasn't a warning. It was a promise.